Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for today, Wednesday, April 24th, 2019.
Commissioner Garcia, Cabello, James, and Caloza are present. President James, we do have a quorum. May we start with your introductions, please, starting with Bureau of Street Lighting.
Good morning. Asad Al-Najjar, Bureau of Street Lighting. Happy Denims Days, everybody.
Good morning. Craig Shaw, Bureau of Street Services.
Good morning. Seffi Wiles, Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning. Wesley Tanagiri, Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning. Anita Fernandez, LA Sanitation.
Good morning. Ted Jordan, Public Works General Counsel.
Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. President James, we did receive one speaker card under general public comment. We have no commentary under the Neighborhood Council comment section. We did receive a speaker card on item number 1617, plus there was an email on item 16 that was printed out and distributed to all commissioners as well.
Okay, thank you. Let's take items 2 through 12, assessment hearings today in council districts 1, 5, 6, 3, 4, and 11. Again, that's 2 through 12. Mr. Al-Najjar, go ahead.
Yes, good morning. For items 2 through 5 and items 7 through 12, these pertain to the street lighting districts which we are creating in conjunction with private development projects. Item 6 pertains to a lighting district which we are creating in conjunction with a community development block grant, the CDBG project. The ballots for items 2 through 8 were mailed on March 13, 2019. The ballots for items 9 through 12 were mailed on March 14, 2019. The ballots for items 2 through 12 must be received by the City Clerk office by next Wednesday, May 1st, 2019, for the council hearing. We have not received to date any objection on the items 2 through 12. We are requesting for the board to adopt and forward the items 2 through 12 forthwith to City Council. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? There were no objections on 2 through 12? Go ahead, Commissioner Cabello. We have a couple that we need to correct the records on.
Yeah, just correcting the record on the way the council districts were listed on items 9 and 12. On item 9 stated CD8, even though the street lighting report is correct, the agenda was incorrectly listed as CD8. It's actually CD1. And with item 12 is incorrectly listed as CD11, but it is actually CD1 as well. So I just wanted to correct the record on that.
Mine says agenda item number 9.
Apologies. Item 9 and item 12 are the ones I'm correcting.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It was assessment hearing number 8, but
correct.
Agenda item number 9.
And was incorrectly listed as CD8.
Yeah.
So got a little confusing. Thank you.
Dr. Campos, are you clear on those?
Yes, we are.
Okay, and we had those accurately. Then that's a motion from Commissioner Garcia. I'll second. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda items 2 through 12 as amended. Any issue sending those forthwith? We'll send those forthwith. Thank you, Commissioner Cabello. Agenda item.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Our meeting minutes, Friday, March 15th, 2019. Approval of those minutes has been seconded by Commissioner Cabello. Any objection? Without objection, we will approve those meeting minutes. Let's go ahead and take care of agenda item number 1. Dr. Campos, we have on number 1 2 public works projects for bids this morning.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer. We do have 2 projects to open up today, 2 bids. The first bid is for the Donald C. Tillman Water Reclamation Plant Administration Building, Heating, Ventilation, and Air Conditioning. This is in Council District number 6, and the city has estimated this bid to be at $3,900,000. Again, this is for the Donald C. Tillman Water Reclamation Plant. The second bid that we will open up for today is for the Secondary Sewer Renewal Program, H07 Washington Boulevard and Hauser Boulevard, and also H08 21st Street and La Brea Avenue. This is in Council District number 10, and the city has estimated the second project to be at $1,813,278 even. We received 1 bid for the first project, and that bid is from KFY United Mechanical Contractors Incorporated, doing business as United Mechanical Contractors. The total bid amount for this project, or for this bid, is for $3,973,000 even. That's 3973000 from KFY United Mechanical Contractors Incorporated. Mr. President, that concludes the bid openings for the first project. We will now begin to open up bids for the second project. For the second project, again, this is for the secondary sewer renewal program. We did receive 4 bids. The first bid received for the second project is from Vasilch Incorporated for a total bid amount of $2,275,541 even. That's 2275541 from Vasilch Incorporated. The next bid is from MNR Construction Incorporated for a total bid amount of $2,486,777 even. That's 2486777 from MNR Construction Incorporated. The third bid is from Ramona Incorporated for a total bid amount of $2,700,839 even. That's 2705839 from Ramona Incorporated. The fourth and final bid received for the second project is from Mike Perlich and Sons Incorporated for a total bid amount of $2,445,891 even. That's 2445891 from Mike Perlich and Sons. Mr. President, that concludes the bid openings for the second project and all bids for today's agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second to my motion that the bids have been received, open, and declared? By Commissioners Garcia and Davis. Any objection? With that objection, that'll be the order. We'll send number 1 forthwith. Thank you both. Dr. Williams, you have a card in for general public comment. Why don't we go ahead and hear from you?
Good morning, Dr. Tom Williams, Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community. First off, we want to thank Street Services and anyone else that may have contributed to a very large asphalt repair at the corner of Lomitas and Monterey Road in our area. The Neighborhood Council voted to support a neighborhood initiative, and within less than 3 weeks, the patch was made. Unbelievable. I don't know how it was done. All of the neighbors are very happy with it. Okay, the other side, sanitation. Where's sanitation? Okay, we need a lot more mulch at the Mission Road free mulch dispensary, because if the bins are empty, construction debris will be dumped there, and has been dumped. So we need a lot more mulch there. I need to know who's responsible for curb cuts, because I submitted some curb cuts almost a year ago, and at Mission Road and the Medical Center, there are 2 intersections without curb cuts. People have to use driveways and or go in the city street. So I want to know who the contact is for curb cuts. And it would be nice, especially for 2 through 12 items today, as to getting a procedure that can be followed for special assessments, such as curbs, such as gutters, and other things that can be done by the neighbors when they complain about that to us in the neighborhood council. So we'd like to have either your best ever application for a special assessment district, or that the Public Works prepare such a
2 minutes.
neighborhood-friendly spatial assessment process application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Williams. Thank you for the information. We don't have any other cards for general public comment, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, then we'll close general public comment. So we have a special surprise presentation this morning that we tried real hard to mess up. Could we? That was very funny. Could we have Cindy and Celeste and Agnes come up to the podium. Oh, we're not going to make you say anything. I thought the 5 of us would stay here and then we'll, yeah. So today is Administrative Assistance Day. And these are the 3 amazing city employees that run our office, and sometimes even run our lives. So we really wanted to surprise you and say thank you for all the work that you do for us every day. Sometimes, kind of over and above the call of duty when you work in the city of Los Angeles with the many phone calls that the board gets from constituents, not all over the city, but all over the state sometimes, and keeping up with our often crazy schedules and competing demands, and doing all of that while you manage everything else that the 3 of you have to manage in a very busy Board of Public Works. So this was our way of saying to you publicly, and we have certificates that you all didn't even have to circulate. Something else that you do, you all circulate all the certificates that come through this board.
Fill out the
We actually got
forms.
certificates done on our own. We wanted to let you know that we really, really appreciate all the great work. And while you're here, we've made arrangements for the phones to be staffed too. We each wanted to say something to you to let you know that we really appreciate really all of your hard work. Many people know Cindy works directly with me. Cindy, thank you again for an amazing year, and we look forward to the next time that we try to find another way to surprise you all on Administrative Assistance Day. Originally, we were just going to tell everybody, our original goal was to tell everybody you can just wear jeans. But apparently somebody else took that idea from us, so we didn't get to do that today. Commissioner Davis.
Yes, I wanted to thank each and every one of them. Musically, I say that they are the supremes of the, of the Board of Public Works. Not only do we have work from all of our various departments, but in addition to that, many of us as commissioners create extra work in the constituent base, if you will, by going to
Speak
meetings.
for yourself, Davis.
Going to meetings, volunteering new projects that weren't on the schedule. And yet we know that we couldn't get any of these things done if it were not for the help of each and every one of you. And we appreciate it, and I know you will forgive us for all of the extra work we create. But you are really the backbone of this office. And when we are not in, when we're in a meeting, which we often are, it is you who makes the difference. I mean, it's just like in the hospital, it couldn't run without nurses. And certainly, for sure, I'm sure there is no question that this office could not run with each and every one of you. So we thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cabello?
Thank you, President James. You keep us on time, you keep us organized, sometimes you keep us fed, and mostly you keep us sane, not insane. Other people do that, but you keep us sane. So thank you all for your work and your efforts. I know none of us could do it without you, and Celeste, you go above and beyond. And I know I drive you crazy with my last-minute changes, but you keep up every time. You're as nimble as one can get, so I really appreciate it, and thank you all, ladies. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cabello. Also, I want to thank, before we go to Commissioners Garcia and Caloza, the ringleader of today's, of getting all of today's work done for this, Commissioner Caloza. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For helping us manage all of this. As Commissioner Davis puts nice handwritten dates on the certificates. Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you, President. Cindy, Agnes, Celeste, you are all very special and unique in your own way on how you deliver your work. But today, an Administrative Day, because it is what your title is and what you do for us here at the city, I thank you personally because I've worked with each and one of you on different occasions for different reasons. And so I am very happy to work with you guys. It's a nice department when we all work together like how you guys do, and so to each and one of you, have a good administrative day. You'll still be working, we know, but I just want to say thank you. Thank you for each and one of you for being so unique, so genuine, and so on top of what we do. And all of you have been very, very good and welcoming to me. I came in a year ago, so I've had already a lot of interactions with each and one of you, and you're all very professional, very knowledgeable in what you're doing, and it amazes me every time when you turn around and say, no, that's not how we're going to do it. We're going to do it this way because it's the way it's supposed to be. So I'm very thankful for each one of you for being part of this department, and thank you for putting your service to the city of LA too. And have a good rest of the day. We'll make sure that you guys have longer lunches today and can, relax, have a good time, do all that today. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Commissioner Caloza.
Thank you, President James. Surprise! I know. My favorite thing about trying to coordinate the surprise for you is that none of you wanted to sit on the other side and do what we told you to. Everyone's like, no, I can't sit. Like, we have work to do. I need to tell the other two. And so I think, this morning really is such a good demonstration for how you three ladies function as a team every day, including this morning, and how you all work together to really support us and the board and, make sure that everything is up and running. We rely on you so much. And so, this is just a small token to say thank you for your service and for your time. You all mean the world to us. So we hope we get a chance to thank you every day for all of that you do.
Thank you all. So we would like to take a group photo on Jeans Day. We all have on jeans. And we have certificates for you, so we'll present those to you, and then we'll get a group photo. Okay. Thank you all. Yes. Okay, thank you, everyone. Returning to our agenda. Let's see. Eventually. Agenda item number 15, Contract Amendment, Council District 14, Gang Alternatives Program, recommending that the board authorize the Office of Community Beautification to execute a contract amendment with Gang Alternatives Program to provide supplemental cleanup and community beautification services in Council District 14 in the amount of $750,000. Secondly, authorize the Director of the Office of Accounting to appropriate funds for the above amendment upon transfer of funding to the Board of Public Works. And third, authorize myself or two members of the board to execute the contract amendment after approval as to form has been obtained by the City Attorney. Mr. Roch.
Good morning, Paul Roch, Director of the Office of Community Beautification. OCB maintains contracts with nonprofit community-based organizations for various cleanup and beautification services. And in many cases, City Council offices supplement the funding that is provided through the regular budget process in order to provide for an increased level of services within the district. The Office of Councilmember Jose Huizar over the years has implemented a Clean Communities initiative in CD14, seeking to clean and beautify the various neighborhoods of the district. They are one of the council districts that traditionally has provided additional resources in order to create an increased level of service. Work under this contract amendment shall include supplemental graffiti removal, litter and weed abatement, bulky item pickup, and various other as-needed tasks. Gang Alternatives Program is the OCB contractor in the southern portion of CD14 and provides much of the work. And they also have a partnership agreement with Fuego Tech Fire Rangers crew to perform some of the supplemental work in the Boyle Heights area. Funds have been transferred into the Public Works Contractual Services account and are ready to be dropped into the contract with Gang Alternatives Program once OCB obtains authority from the Board of Public Works to amend the existing contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from Mr. Roch on this item? I don't have any questions. Thank you, Paul. Commissioner Garcia has made a motion that we adopt agenda item number 15, seconded by Commissioners Caloza and Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 15. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any issue setting 15 forthwith? We'll send number 15 forthwith. Agenda item number 19, Council District 14, street closure extension. It's around 2nd Street and Hope Street, Metro Regional Connector Transit Corridor Project. Recommending that the board, Dr. Campos, I don't have any speaker cards on number 19, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Recommending that the board first find that the Board of Public Works has reviewed and considered the information in the project draft, environmental impact statement, and environmental impact report. We'll call that the EIR, that's transmittal number 1, and project final EIR, that's transmittal number 2. Secondly, find under the California Public Resources Code section 21166 and CEQA guidelines section 15162 on the basis of substantial evidence contained in the whole record that since certification of the EIR, there have been no changes with respect to the circumstances under which the temporary street closure being undertaken would require a subsequent EIR or a supplemental EIR. Third, adopt the January 20th, 2012 Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program, that's Chapter 8 of the final EIR, and Appendix 3. The Memorandum of Agreement, Transmittal 3, prepared by the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, that's Metro, as it pertains to construction impacts. Fourth, find under CEQA Guidelines Section 15091 that changes have been incorporated into the project which substantially lessen the significant environmental effects as identified in the final EIR. Also further find that there is no feasible alternative or additional feasible mitigation measures within the board's powers that would substantially lessen any significant effect the project would have on the environment. Fifth, adopt the attached CEQA findings of fact and statement of overriding considerations, that's transmittal number 4, as it pertains to the temporary street closure, and find that the economic, social, technological, and other benefits of the project outweigh its significant and unavoidable impacts. 6, specify that the Metro Transit Division of the Bureau of Engineering located at 1149 South Broadway, and the board located here at 200 North Spring Street, and other relevant City of Los Angeles departments are custodians of the documents and other material which constitute the record of the proceedings upon which the board's decision is based. Seventh, approve the street closure request, this is transmittal number 5, to extend the existing temporary street closures for 32 months from 6 p.m. Saturday, April 27, 2019 to 6 p.m. Friday, December 31st, 2021 for the following streets, subject to the conditions identified within the report. General Thaddeus Kazuko Way, Connector Road between 3rd and Hope Street. Second place between Flower Street and Hope Street. Northbound Flower Street between 3rd Street and Hope Street. 8, approve the peak hour exemption request, transmittal number 6, to allow construction work within the public right-of-way during weekday morning peak hours, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., and weekday afternoon peak hours, 3:30 to 7 p.m., starting Monday, April 29, 2019, and ending Friday, December 31, 2021, for the following streets, subject to conditions identified within the report. GTK Way, Connector Road between 3rd Street and Hope. Second place between Flower and Hope. Northbound Flower Street between 3rd Street and Hope. Hope between GTK Way and 1st Street. Ms. Wang and Mr. Xu both. Go ahead.
Good morning. I am Ann Huang from the Bureau of Engineering Metro Transit Division. The Metro Regional Connector Project is a 1.9-mile underground light rail transit line that will extend from the Gold Line Little Tokyo Station to the 7th Street Metro Center. The Regional Connector Project is a project implemented by Metro. BOE's role is to review and approve the work that is in the public right-of-way in accordance with a master cooperative agreement between the city and Metro. On January 22, 2016, the board adopted a joint Bureau of Engineering and Bureau of Street Services board report to permit the 39-month closure ending on April 27, 2019 for the following streets. General Thaddeus Kosciuszko or GTK Way Connector Road between 3rd Street and Hope Street. Second place between Hope Street and Flower Street. Northbound Flower Street between 3rd Street and Hope Street. On March 13, 2019, Metro and their contractor, the Regional Connector Constructors, requested to extend the existing temporary street closures and the peak hour exemption of the 2nd and Hope Station area for an additional 32 months until Friday, December 31st, 2021, to complete the construction of the station and other site restoration, including street improvements and utility relocations. The Los Angeles Department of Transportation has reviewed and approved the worksite traffic control plans for the requested closure extension. LADOT will provide support services to manage traffic conditions as safely and efficiently as possible during the requested time period. All major construction submittals associated with this closure have been approved by the Bureau of Engineering. Council District 14 has communicated that they support the proposed closure. LA Police Commission exemption from the work hour as restrictions for nighttime, early morning, and Sunday construction has been granted through June 30th, 2019. Per the LA Police Commission, extensions are pursued 2 weeks prior to expiration date. Metro has stated that they are committed to providing advance notice and mitigating construction impacts for the Bunker Hill Financial District and downtown communities in advance of construction activities and during the life of the project. Therefore, I ask that the board adopt this report with the recommendations read at the introduction of the board item and with the conditions stated in the report. Representatives from Metro, RCC, LADOT, and BOE's Environmental Management Group are here today if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Would one of you talk about kind of the outreach to the area that's happened as a result of this? Whoever can best speak to that.
It's Larry Hsu. I'm going to defer that to Metro's construction. All right, we have Gary Baker instead.
Mr. Baker.
Project Director.
Good morning. Yes, since January, we had a CTC Downtown Committee.
CTC?
It's a community.
Transportation Committee?
Transportation, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Olga was going to be here to respond to this question, I'm sorry. So at that meeting, we talked to them. That's a downtown community, Flower Street community, Bunker Hill area.
Yeah.
And then subsequent to that, there have been several meetings in our office where constituents or stakeholders have also been apprised of this. So everyone in the area is aware of our current schedule, and there's been no concerns expressed.
And Gary, you are the project manager for it, correct?
Yes, sir.
Would you, and you've been here many times, assume for a moment that I'm at a neighborhood council meeting and a question comes up regarding this extended closure. If you were me, or if you were going to brief me on just kind of a quick summary of the reason for it, what would you say?
Sure. Back at when we first approached the board and the community back in 2015, we were anticipating to be done with the station about now or a year from now, and that's why our application extended to this period of time. We began those discussions about August of 2015, if I remember. Subsequent to that, you may recall we've been before the board many times talking about the impacts we've had with utilities.
Yes.
And that caused an 18-month impact to our project. We were able to recover some of that, about a year of that. And so that has impacted our schedule and has lengthened the period of time which our contractor has to complete the entire project. That's the first reason. The second reason, the station itself is taking longer within that contract period to construct because the contractor has focused his efforts on other areas that are more critical to the overall success of the project. So those are the two reasons why we're in this area for longer than anticipated.
Okay. And I guess other than that, I just appreciate the assurances that the outreach has been done on this. And look, you guys know we haven't really had any problems at all. The outreach team on Regional Connector has been great. And I just, but we always need reassurance that success continues. So
that is very critical to our job. I'm thankful to have a good team that really does focus on that, and that you remain. The community has our commitment as well as our commitment to you to continue that.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you, President. My question was along the same lines as President James. I noticed here that there's a piece in here that says that you'll be notifying the community, the residents around through a lot of social media. Will this closure impact bus routes?
Yeah, so this closure is a continuation of a closure that's been in place for about 3 years.
Okay.
And so all those adjustments to the bus routes have been made. They'll just continue to be as they have been.
Okay. I just want to make the recommendation, if possible, to post some of these notices on the street so that walking folks can also see it, because sometimes not everybody's on social media and will know that these changes or these closure will happen. I'm just, around the bus stops would be nice so that just there's more communication out to it, because it is a very long time, 32 months. So just making sure that our folks get that information out there.
Understood. I'll take that back.
Thank you.
And Gary, since we're extending a closure that's been there for some time, anybody that had relied on an earlier opening, they've been communicated with directly, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. I don't have any further questions. I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item 19, seconded by Commissioner Cabello. Thank you all. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 19.
Thank you again for your support.
Thank you. All right, thank you. And any issue sending number 19 forthwith? We'll send number 19 forthwith. There was no need for any amendments on 19, so that goes as is. Agenda item number 20, Vision Theater, Council District 10, Vision Theater and Manchester Junior Arts Center, phases 2 and 3, recommending that the board, there's a motion that from our city engineer that the board grant the request to use the revised funding portion as shown in the project funding table in place of the table provided and adopt the original joint report. So, Mr. Drucker, you're here on number 20. This is this as simple as just using different funds for the payment of the invoices that we're dealing with?
Good morning, Commissioner. Neil Drucker, Bureau of Engineering. And you're correct, President James. This is basically changing the color of money or changing the funds. When we originally awarded the project, we had about $12 million in to-be-determined funding. We've now come up with 10 of that $12 million. 6 of it came from MICLA, and 2 of it came from additional community development block grants. So this is just reflecting that additional funding. Also, you'll see one of the funds, the BOE Special Services Fund. All of the CDBG money will be moved into that fund. So there'll be about $6 million in CDBG funds that will be moved from an account under HCID, Housing and Community Investment Department, to a Bureau of Engineering Special Services Fund so that we can pay the invoices directly.
Okay. Any questions on number 20? I don't have any questions. I'll make a motion that we adopt agenda item number 20, seconded by Commissioner Garcia and Commissioner Caloza. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 20. Any issue sending 20 forthwith? We'll send number 20 forthwith. Back to number 13, Capital Improvement Project, Bureau of Engineering, Terminal Island Water Reclamation Plant, Digester Sludge Recirculation Piping Support Rehab Project, recommending that the board authorize the city engineer to use a construction services contract and issue task work orders to the contractor for an amount not to exceed $290,000 for the project. Mr. Shaw, good morning.
Good morning, Nadir Shah, Bureau of Engineering, Environmental Engineering Division. The capital improvement project 8545 will be undertaken at the Terminal Island Water Reclamation Plant located in Council District 15. The plant has 4 large egg-shaped digesters that produce 50 wet tons per day of Class A biosolids. The digesters also has sludge recirculation line that facilitate the mixing of sludge in the digesters. The support for these recirculation lines has failed and are currently temporarily supported by vertical timber members. In case of seismic or other event, the sludge recirculation line may collapse, resulting in sludge spill and the disruption of sludge digestion process. The purpose of this project is to perform structural rehabilitation and improvement of 12 pipe supports for the sludge recirculation pipelines. The use of conventional bid and award process would be prohibitively time-consuming. Due to the size and nature of this project, the use of construction services contract or Cisco will result in a timely delivery of the project. On February 13, 2019, Program Review Committee approved a total budget of $290,000, including contingency for the project. It is recommended that the board authorize to use Cisco to city engineer and to issue task work orders to the contractor for an amount not to exceed $290,000 for this project.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shaw. Are there any questions on this one? It's $290,000. I didn't have any questions either. Commissioner Davis?
No, that was...
Okay. Commissioner Camellos made a motion that we adopt agenda item number 13, seconded by Commissioner Garcia. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 13. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any issue sending number 13 forthwith? We'll send number 13 forthwith. Agenda item number 14, supplemental change order number 11, Skanska, Stacy, and Whitbeck for task order package B, as in boy, recommending that the board first authorize the city engineer to issue supplemental agreement change order number 11 to Skanska for a deductive amount of $3,255,000 for task order package B for the building demolition, utility relocation, Bureau of Street Services yard relocation for the 6th Street Viaduct replacement project to delete the construction of the new BSS yard and building from the scope of work. Ms. Moy, it sounds like we're not doing that work anymore.
No, well, not under this task order.
Okay.
So good morning, Julia Moy, Bureau of Engineering, 6th Street Viaduct Division. My pleasure to be here this morning with a deductive change order on the project. As Commissioner James mentioned, we're requesting that deductive change order. In this case, it'll be a supplement agreement as well as a closeout change order for this package. And this is for an amount of $3,255,000 to remove the new BSS yard building from at least Skanska, Stacy, and Whitbeck's scope of work. So if you please bear with me, I'm going to try to briefly go through the history of the project. Quite a bit has happened since the award of the project in 2015, approximately 4 years to go. The board, it was on June 29th, 2015, that the board awarded this task order to Skanska, Stacy, and Whitbeck in the amount of $8,071,000. It was issued with 2 notices to proceed. The first notice to proceed, which was just over half of the contract value, consisted of the demolition of 8 buildings, including the existing BSS yard that was previously located under the viaduct, and the undergrounding of power lines. The NTP was issued on July 15th, this first NTP, and the board later authorized the issuance of change order 15 to close out this NTP on March 15th of 2017 upon completion of all this scope of work. Notice to proceed number 2 consisted of about half the value of the contract at $3.755 million. And this entailed and encompassed the actual installation of the BSS yard, both a new building as well as the site improvements at 850 North Mission. So in 2013, 2 years prior to the award of this contract, BOE, BSS, and LA Sanitation entered into an MOU as approved by the Seismic Governance Committee for the new BSS yard that was going to be demolished by the 6th Street Viaduct. It was previously located along Santa Fe under the viaduct. To install this yard on LA Sanitation property with a long-term up to 40-year lease at 850 North Mission. At the time of award, the plans were not yet finalized. The permit had not been issued by the Department of Building and Safety, but there was an urgency to getting this awarded. We were wanting to maintain the demolition schedule for the viaduct. We would be demolishing the existing BSS yard. So we wanted to have this awarded, despite the fact we didn't have final plans, and have that NTP2 in order to be able to issue that work to the contractor as soon as it was permitted by the Department of Building and Safety. So shortly after award, the Bureau of Sanitation, primarily due to the demands of Operation Clean Sweep, determined they did not have enough space for their trucks and their equipment in order to allow BSS to use this site. So 2 weeks after award, they notified the Bureau of Street Services and the Bureau of Engineering that this site could no longer be made available to BSS. Subsequent, the Bureau of Engineering did obtain approval from the Department of Building and Safety for the plans for the yard, with some changes, some owner-requested changes by BSS, as well as some enhancements to the facility, particularly the stormwater capture system. The budget, unfortunately, the projected cost of the yard also exceeded the amount of contingency and the awarded value in the contract. So there were really 2 issues that came up that put NTP2 on hold. The city team came together at that time to try to figure out what's our path forward to provide this alternate yard for BSS, as well as make LA Sanitation whole. So the team of the council office, CD14, as well as the Bureau of Sanitation, the Bureau of Street Services, along with the BOE met. Fortunately, Bureau of Street Services was able to temporarily relocate their staff and equipment from the 6th Street yard that they had under the viaduct to other area yards. So it did take this, the development of this new site off the critical path of the viaduct project, which was a relief. And there were lengthy discussions with the entities, the city entities I mentioned, to finally reach an agreement. It was determined that LA Sanitation could make the yard available in the end at 850 North Mission. We also had a modular office that became available. Under the Riverside Drive Viaduct, there was to be a BSS, the small tree yard office installed that was procured under that project. Unfortunately, due to right-of-way issues, that was never installed. So we had not only sanitation say this site could be made available, we had this modular building that was available for installation that kind of helped address the budget issues, installing that on the site in lieu of the building that was originally anticipated. So early last year on January 25th, 2018, SGC did direct BOE to go ahead and move forward with a deductive change order to remove this scope of work from task order B with Skanska, Stacy, and Whitbeck, as well as to proceed with improvements to the yard and installation of the modular building. The modular building has been delivered to that site, and our architecture division is currently planning those improvements at that site. And BOE did move forward with SSW to negotiate this change order for final issuance and the closeout of this package. So now that we're through the history, back to the meat of what we're looking to do today. We're looking to issue this deductive change order for $3.255 million. In this case, the contractor would then retain $500,000 of the original amount of those bid items. The reason they're retaining these costs is, number one, the city's general requirements, and this general requirements under the contract, section 1254, has provisions for the contractor to maintain the markup for overhead and profit when we do delete scope from a contract, so they are entitled to that. In addition, there is a little bit of additional money, a little over $100,000 that they're retaining for some of their indirect costs, for staff costs associated, and inefficiencies related to not having the opportunity to deliver this scope of work, along with the demolitions and utility relocation that occurred on NTP1 for the project. So we were able to come to that agreement, and with your authority, look to issue a final change order to close out this package. I'm happy to address any questions this morning.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis.
This is a proposal to ratify the removal of NTP2, is that correct? Now, in terms of, we have NTP1, obviously, what impact will the removal of NTP2 have on the overall project? I'm sorry. What impact will the removal of NTP2 have on the overall project?
Well, generally, we're in relation to the overall kind of project scope itself. That's approximately $250 million in construction contracts. This is approximately $4 million in work, and overall, it doesn't the project DBE goal that the contractor has committed to is 23.95%. So that won't be impacted by this work. And really, this work was to be performed primarily, almost entirely by subcontractors. The meat of what Skanska does is that major civil work, major civil contractor, the bridge construction. So I guess that'll be where there is, I think especially to Skanska, not a major impact.
So you said that the site is no longer available, I guess, in your explanation in the background of why we have this particular proposal, and that the costs exceeded, I guess, our original understanding of what it would cost to do the project. Is that pretty accurate in terms of why we are having to do this?
Yeah, well, unfortunately now sanitation has been able to make that site available to the Bureau of Street Services under that long-term lease up to 40 years. In addition, fortunately, with the modular office building that was procured and paid for through the Riverside Drive Viaduct project, but unfortunately couldn't be installed, that was an available city-owned kind of facility, that modular office facility that could be utilized at this site. So that was a substantial savings that, although there was the cost increase to install the masonry building that was originally planned for the site, besides, moving and installation costs, it's going to be of no charge to BSS or our project to install the modular office building. And then with the funding...
So our original plan in installing it was what? Why did we want to install it in the very beginning?
Well, we didn't have, when we awarded the contract, we didn't have the permits finalized by the Department of Building and Safety. So we didn't issue that NTP to move forward with the installation. And then when sanitation deemed that the site had become unavailable in 2015, we couldn't move forward with the installation. And also when the final improvement plans came through.
But what I'm trying to find out is, I understand it was no longer available. It had become unavailable. I'm just trying to understand, why did it become unavailable?
Oh, okay. Well, sanitation explained that because of particularly the city-related, mayor initiative, the Operation Clean Sweep, to do additional street cleaning and, target different areas in the city. They were acquiring new equipment. Their strike teams that they were forming, and it was putting a heavy burden on them in terms of space restrictions. So they said, because of this new program, without, other yard space identified in another area, we cannot make this available to the Bureau of Street Services.
Should have been possibly, we hate to keep second guessing this, but I'm just interested to know. Had we been able to move expeditiously on the construction side, we might have been able to obtain NTP2 had we moved expeditiously, correct? Possibly.
Yeah, well, sanitation, it was just 2 weeks after award that they deemed that the site was unavailable. So, it was very quickly. There was not a lot of time, I think even before the NTP was issued for the first NTP, before the contractor could even submit their insurance and paperwork, and we could get the first NTP out, which was about 2.5 weeks
so
after.
Basically you're telling me that 2 weeks after we said we could do it, then we discovered that we could not, obviously because priorities changed in terms of some of the other things that we were doing. Well, I'm not going to second guess our initial plan in terms of doing it, but within 2 weeks certainly would not have given the construction team time enough to be able to implement expeditiously to the degree that we would have been able to achieve what we had planned to do. I'm just trying to look at our plans in the very first place, what impact the absence of MTP would have, and if in fact we lost anything as a result of this change in terms of, I know that you said we allocated some resources to other existing facilities, if you will. I don't know what kind of jobs that would potentially be lost as a result of not being able to implement this, or what lack of resources we would have as a result of this change, which is what I was trying to get to understand. But obviously, in concluding my remarks here, given all of what we've had to do in organizational change, this tends to be the best choice moving forward. But I would love to see initially, when we're making these plans, us to the degree possible be able to successfully move forward if we think from the very beginning. I'm always open to change if change is better for us. So I'm hoping that in this case, given the facts, that this change is the better choice for us than our original plan.
Yeah, and street services, they have indicated they've been able to maintain the street sweeping in the downtown district and the area served by moving that equipment and personnel and finding capacity and other area yards, but have noted there have been inefficiencies and additional travel time, of course. So we are looking forward, now that we have the full funding and plan in place, to getting that new yard delivered for them as quickly as possible, so they can move those forces for street sweeping back downtown, and to deliver services even more efficiently than they are today.
I know that, I'll just conclude, I know that it's fair that once we engage contractors in this so-called proposed project, and then when we pull it back, that's a cost. And you did talk about that cost, and probably that's fair. But obviously we want to prevent having to give up this $500,000 or whatever it is we have to give for these kinds of decisions if we can move forward in a way in our planning in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Any other questions? Commissioner Colossus has made a motion that we adopt agenda item number 14, seconded by Commissioner Cabello. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 14. Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Thank you.
Any issue sending 14 forthwith? We'll send 14 forthwith. Agenda item number 18, sanitation, street services, and OCB. Agreement and resolution, California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. This is a CAL FIRE program. Recommending that the board first approve and forward the report with its transmittal to the mayor and city council, with the recommendation that the city council subject to the concurrence of the mayor, authorize the director of the LA Sanitation to his designee to apply for, accept, negotiate, execute, and submit all grant documents, including but not limited to applications, agreements, and amendments, subject to the approval of the city attorney as to form, which may be necessary to receive funding if awarded a grant from the state of California, Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, CAL FIRE, for the project Tremendous. How clever. TREE. Not to exceed $1,500,000. Secondly, request the city council, subject to concurrence by the mayor, to adopt the accompanying resolution authorizing the submission of the grant application to CAL FIRE and appointing the director of sanitation or his designee to conduct all negotiations, execute and submit all documents, including but not limited to applications, agreements, amendments, and payment requests, which may be necessary to carry out the purpose of the resolution in compliance with CAL FIRE requirements to complete the project and expend funds prior to December 31, 2022. Third, authorize the Integrated Solid Waste Management Fund to front fund the project with authorities of expenditure of approximately $500,000 in year one, $900,000 in year two, and $100,000 in year three. Fourth, authorize reimbursements from CAL Fund to be deposited into the ISWMF Fund number 556, Department number 50, Department Revenue Source Code 336104. 5, request the Board of Public Works to authorize the Office of Community Beautification to amend the contract, or I think it says newer 2019-2020 contract. Is that renewal or is that newer, Dr. Campos?
I have it as a newer in the report. However, it would technically be a renewal of the contract because we're amending those contracts.
My lawyer language in my brain tells me that ought to be renewal.
We would be amending those
with
contracts.
With a renewal of the 2019-2020 contract with the Los Angeles Conservation Corps. Melinda's agreeing with me. To authorize work up to $1,500,000, increase the contract ceiling by $1,500,000, and to extend the contract through December 31, 2022 if the grant is funded. That does make sense on the renewal. Number 6, authorize myself or 2 members of the board to execute the contract amendment after approval as to form has been obtained from the city attorney. And 7th, authorize the controller and sanitation to make technical corrections as necessary. Ms. Bartlett.
Good morning. Melinda Bartlett with LA Sanitation and the Environment. So I am here today again to request another grant application for tree planting. And as an overview, this is our 4th CAL FIRE request. It will bring us, if awarded, and we're hoping, $4.75 million from cap and trade dollars to be used in disadvantaged communities. And that's with our scrappy little team that you're going to get to meet. And with that $4.7 million, we have planted or will plant 8,300 plus trees. We will have created 3,000 new tree wells, which is removing 73,000 square feet of concrete, which is equivalent to 1.6 acres of concrete. And the CAL FIRE rep told us in the state of California, we are the largest user of this funds to remove concrete, and they were thrilled. So it's great. And we couldn't do this without our partnership with Street Services, and sanitation has been great about having our financial management division do the support on all this grant work and invoicing, and it's been delightful. So happy Earth Month. I'd like to introduce Michelle Barton and Amy Schulenberg, who are our rock stars of the program and getting out there talking to our community members and getting these trees in the ground and making sure they survive. So, Michelle, I think you're up next.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. Michelle Barton, Environmental Specialist with the Regulatory Affairs Division. So I'm just going to give you some of the numbers and a brief background of this specific grant project called Tremendous. So CAL FIRE requires that these projects work in communities designated by Assembly Bill 1550. So those are disadvantaged communities and low-income communities. And in Los Angeles, about 50% of our census tracts qualify. So we have areas in each of the 15 council districts that are eligible for this project that can see the benefits of this great work. So in terms of the numbers, we will be planting 1,800 new 15-gallon street trees, and we're going to be creating 1,100 new tree wells, which is equivalent to removing 26,400 square feet of concrete. And we're going to actually be doing full maintenance and watering on 1,300 of the 1,800 in this package. And that is the huge difference in this project compared to what we've done in the past, because having the full maintenance and watering on these trees ensures the survivability even in the harshest environments. So that watering is only possible with partnerships through Streets LA. UFD is going to be watering 1,000 of our trees, and then one of the subcontractors or the actual subcontractor through the OCB contract will be doing the remaining 300. So it's OCB, Streets LA, and LACC are our huge partners that are going to make all of this possible. The last thing we are going to do is host an urban forestry or sustainability fair, likely in conjunction with Arbor Day 2020. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that the planting of these 1,800 trees will store or sequester over 11,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalents. So making LA more green, more sustainable, and getting rid of those GHGs.
Hi, good morning. I'm Amy Schulenberg with LA Sanitation and Environment. I was just going to discuss with you today a little bit about how the project will work once we start implementing it. We're going to be looking for the most barren corridors in the city that are in our eligible areas, where we're looking at small mom and pop businesses as well as residential with high traffic counts. These tend to, with the ones that have the most concrete, are also the hardest areas to green. And so this is where we can really come in and make a significant impact on the communities. The grant so far, we have identified a few key corridors we're looking at. One is Victory Boulevard in the valley between like the 170 west over towards Kester. Another key corridor will be Western from the 10 north up to Olympic. And then we're going to continue our work along the 110 corridor in South LA. We will also be, when we do work along these corridors, we also look at the residential adjacent streets. We really want to wrap that green around to the neighbors as well. This idea that we can come in and take out concrete and plant trees and the residential areas really gives a comprehensive greening to communities rather than, here and there kind of attempts at environmental improvements. One important part of our program is our community outreach. So we do mailers to neighborhoods. We're working with neighborhood councils.
We do, we're just starting a Facebook also. We're getting posts on Nextdoor. We're trying to engage people. We're also rolling out this year on our sanitation trucks are going to have ads for the program throughout the city. So we're excited about that new program. Also, we've had our staff working with community groups such as Pacoima Beautiful, where we've gone out and trained their community inspectors that are going out in the neighborhood and working how they can improve their communities, how they can incorporate our tree planting program into their outreach. So we're really hopeful that this will really reach people all over the city in all these variety of ways. Finally, I just wanted to note that all the work we do is through local nonprofits, so that the work is also encouraging young adults to get job training and keeping that money in the city with our youth. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions on the program that any of us can answer, we are here.
Great, thank you to all of you. Commissioner Cabello?
Thank you, President James. This is Tree Mendes. Thank you, literally and figuratively. I'm very excited about all of the work that the city departments are doing together. Seeing sanitation, street services, Streets LA, city plants, OCB, LACC work together to what to me is about essentially an equity issue. It is making sure that all areas have the green canopy, having the urban forest expand in a way that is maybe more prevalent in some areas than others. So I really, really appreciate that. Ms. Bartlett, you quoted using the CAL FIRE grants collectively some really impressive figures. I think there was $4.7 million, 300,000 plus trees, 3,000 tree wells. I would love it if you can maybe send me a quick email with all these stats, especially if we do get this one CAL FIRE grant. Because as I've been talking more about trees publicly and what I call my tree stump, no, pun intended, I think it'd be wonderful to really highlight the work that you've been doing, which I really appreciate and has added so much to the city and brought it's not just a climate change issue, it's an equity issue, and this really highlights that. So thank you again for your work. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Cabello. Commissioner Garcia?
Thank you, President. I want to echo Vice President Cabello's sentiments as well. You guys are doing an amazing job. I wouldn't say not so scrappy. You guys have been no team there. All this time that I've been on the board, I've only heard really good things about your team and how awarded you have been successfully when you apply to all these grants. So I'm a very true believer of grants because it allows us to be more nimble out in the community. We can do more things. I just have a very logistical question. If folks wanted to add their streets or something like that, is that still possible, or have we designated everything?
No, it's absolutely possible. And because we work so closely with city plants, even any community activist or resident who wants to go door to door on their street to green their entire street, they can bring that to us as a package, and we can help get it funded through our grant, or we can help city plants make sure it is planted through the DWP money that maybe the grant couldn't fund.
Got it.
So we can do anything, anywhere, and we really look for those opportunities of people who are interested, and we can make it happen, and we can make it happen pretty fast.
Wow.
So that's great.
Well, your team sounds amazing. Congratulations to all.
Thank
and
you.
to sanitation as well. And the partnership with OCB, it's really nice to see that as well with city plants. And so congratulations. I'm a great supporter of your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, I'd like to echo my prior colleagues' comments and first of all say how excited I am that we've been able to captivate the cap and trade dollars to use effectively here in the city of Los Angeles. $4.7 million is major, and it's wonderful in terms of what you're doing. Outreach, I think, is critically important, and you talked about barren areas. And I hope that when we outreach, that we can use this as an opportunity to maximize our public education, particularly in those barren areas that you mentioned, including the constituents there. And I believe that once we make people and citizens aware of the environment, they're more likely to help to protect and take care of it once they become more aware. And so yours is your efforts, your activities are tools by which we can achieve this. Are the city council offices and their field reps involved in helping you as we begin to implement this program and take full advantage of the cap and trade dollars to do these things in the environment and planting our trees?
Absolutely. So as we go into a corridor, we are meeting with the, Ackley, Padilla, and Pacoima, or whoever we need to meet with, sort of chatting with them. And again, we can offer this as an opportunity if they want to do a small event surrounding one of the schools that I am anxious to get out to is Telfair Elementary in Pacoima, which has the highest number of students that are homeless. There's no green around that school, and they're letting, people live in their cars, and these kids are going in and out. So that's a school that I want to make sure we get a handle on. And we're working with those council districts to help identify areas that we're not familiar with.
Well, I'm glad to hear that our council offices are involved, and I certainly intend to touch bases with the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th
Great.
in terms of what we're doing to help realize some results from these dollars. And obviously, because some of these areas are barren in those areas that you have mentioned before us today, this is really important for us to make sure that the gap we have in these areas about knowledge of environmental prudency becomes more effective. And I think I love the work that you're doing, and I certainly think that it's appropriate for us in Public Works to be a part of that and to promote it. So I'm committed to make sure that we work with those areas and our representatives in those areas to make sure they get this word out to constituents, particularly in South LA that I work with.
Great. And I would hope, Commissioner, that anybody that has any contact with folks out of Sacramento on the cap and trade dollars, that these little bits of money make huge differences to the individual communities. And I believe there are some questions on future funding with the new governor, maybe. So we want to make sure that if we have anybody talking about it, we can give them examples how that first $750,000 we got on Vermont, we got 700 new trees in. We've circled a couple of schools. The trees are already big and blooming for all the Bohemia that are out there. KYCC maintained them all. They look fabulous. We're just finishing our 3rd year on that particular corridor.
Well, as a former legislator, I will take you up on that assignment and talk to our delegation that I'm familiar with. Because it's not only helping us, it's helping them too, because they represent us in Sacramento. And I appreciate your calling that to my attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Cabello.
Thank you, President James. I apologize. I was so excited about this that I forgot to actually ask the question I had about the project. So in the board report, you do state that you are going to be doing 1,100 trees along major corridors like Victory Boulevard, and the remaining 700 will be planted in residential or commercial districts that have existing open parkways. Can you also, when you send me the stats of all of the CAL FIRE grant accomplishments, send me the neighborhoods as well? I'd really love to see that. And if possible, I can get that today, because we got that tree summit coming up on Friday, and I'd like to mention this as part of my tree stump.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Anything further, Commissioner Cabello? See, there was my invitation. Commissioner Cabello made a motion, seconded by Commissioners Garcia and Davis. Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 18. Thank you, Ms. Bartlett.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you all. Good to see you. Commissioner Cabello says forthwith, so that'll be the order on number 18. Are we done with all of the voting items except 16 and 17?
That is correct.
Okay. One or both of these have been here before. Let's take number 16 first, although these are not unrelated. Agenda item number 16, and then I'm going to read what's on the agenda, and then I know that our city attorney throughout the hearing will have some amendments depending on where we go, which direction we go here. Number 16, hearing on ordinance number 184966, termination of NASCO Petroleum Pipeline franchise. Number one, find that the ordinance number 184966 related to NASCO Petroleum LLC, we'll call that NASCO, for operations of pipeline vault assets below the city streets expired by its own terms on March 16, 2019, transmittal 1, it says here. Secondly, concur with the automatic termination of NASCO's ordinance number 184966. Number three, order NASCO to cease use of all franchise assets immediately upon action by the board recognizing the termination of ordinance number 184966. Number four, order NASCO to submit a pipeline abandonment plan for approval to the petroleum administrator within 30 calendar days in compliance with section 4.7 of ordinance number 184966. Number five, order NASCO to implement all aspects of the pipeline abandonment plan upon approval of the plan by the board. Number six, order the petroleum administrator to report status of the abandonment to the Board of Public Works within 120 days of the order by the board. And number seven, request the Board of Public Works executive officer to provide written notification to NASCO of the board's action. We will start with Mr. Entuck. I know that we have Ms. Izagiri here as well, and Mr. Jordan. We also have speaker cards. Actually, let's take Dr. Williams first. Dr. Williams on number 16.
Okay. Dr. Tom Williams, CCSC, and I did my first oil well about 60 years ago. Basic problem. All oil companies operate in the real world with no ownership. They operate with usually less than 2 months cash flow. Why? Because they can declare bankruptcy. Number one, is NASCO still viable corporation? Here for the monitoring plan, who is liable for any contamination from this pipeline after they, quotes, abandon it? So I'd highly recommend a monitoring program that would include soil probes to at least 3 feet below the pipeline elevation, and that they be occurring within 10 feet of the origin and destination of each pipeline, within 10 feet of the valves, the major flanges, elbows especially, and metering stations. So it's a matter of getting some reliable information about the liability that the city may incur by terminating these leases, franchises. We have the same problem in other areas regarding long-term pipeline contamination. Underground storage tank case law is there. So the owners of the property, are they liable for any contamination once the company ceases the franchise and probably declares bankruptcy, as Alinco and St. James had done before? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Mr. Entuck, we'll start with you, and we also have a bankruptcy attorney from the city attorney's office, Wendy Liu, in case we have questions from the board regarding the bankruptcy issues that were raised last time. Mr. Entuck.
Good morning, President James, Board of Public Works Commissioners, and Board of Public Works leadership. We're returning here from 2.5 weeks ago on the NASCO franchise agreement about its expiration and status of violations that have happened. Updates since 2 weeks ago, it was good that we had a continuance. We were able to do some more digging and due diligence and discovered we did not actually issue NASCO a 9-month extension. In the 2017 franchise agreements that were adopted by the City Council for approximately 32 franchisees, including NASCO, it was for 1 year with the option of a 9-month extension. This board last summer in July of 2018 adopted 9-month extensions for the other franchisees, but this was The one franchisee at that time had not paid 2 years worth of franchise payments. So we had not received the 2017 nor the 2018, so we did not do the 9-month extension. The franchise still has 3 requirements. It requires the ongoing payment of annual franchise fees, it requires the maintaining of insurance, and it requires maintaining of bonds. So in our previous hearing, we did have the incorrect date. It shouldn't have been March of 2019 when it expired, but it actually was July 17th of 2018, last summer. Also, we have gotten some correspondence from the operator to the attorney.
So, Mr. Ntug, sorry, so you were saying that the 9-month extensions were not granted. Does that mean that these expired on a different date?
That's correct. July 17th, 2018 is when this franchise expired.
Okay, go ahead.
So we did have some communications, mainly through the city attorney's office and the operator's attorney. They did, since our last hearing, we did get a bond on record and get it approved for $50,000, which exceeds the 3 times our annual franchise fee. They did submit updated insurance levels. This insurance review process started in April of last year. They did not have the proper insurance levels at that time, and they did not have the proper insurance levels until they submitted it just this month for April 15th was the last submission. The problem is the franchise requires $1 million in workers' comp, $1 million in auto, $10 million general liability, and $25 million pollution prevention was set in gradual coverage. What they've submitted still has not been approved by the CAO's risk management office because they don't have this set in gradual coverage on their pollution liability. And then I think the city attorney's office has a number of updates, particularly regarding the allegation of being federally preempted by the bankruptcy court. So I'll let them, maybe
Great.
Tania or Wendy can.
Thank you. Whoever would like to speak. Good morning, Ms. Liu.
Good morning. Wendy Liu Smart from the LA City Attorney's Office. I'm a Deputy City Attorney. I'm not sure if the Commissioner has any questions or
Yes,
if I should
so
just...
an issue that came up last time, and between Mrs. Aguirre, yourself, or Mr. Jordan, there was an issue about, an argument was made regarding preemption because of a possible bankruptcy.
Yes, I was only brought into this case recently, so I haven't had a whole lot of time, but my understanding is that there have been representations at prior, there have been representations at a prior board hearing or two that because the NASCO was in bankruptcy, that the board was limited in what it could do. The NASCO was in bankruptcy. I'm not sure how much detail the board is aware of, but NASCO was put in Chapter 11 by these 2 individuals who NASCO, as it currently operates, they had a dispute over ownership, and there was the filing of a petition that was later found to be unauthorized. And so on December 21st of 2018, the case was dismissed by order of the bankruptcy court. And what that did was when the bankruptcy code provides that when the case is dismissed, that means the automatic stay terminates. And so it's clear that the automatic stay was in effect only from August, I forgot the date, August 16th of 2018 was the petition date, and the order dismissing the case was entered on December 21st, 2018. So the automatic stay applied only during that time. The bankruptcy case is still open, technically, but that's only so the bankruptcy court could handle administrative matters, such as paying the fee applications of various professionals of the bankruptcy estate. But for all intents and purposes, the bankruptcy no longer exists. It has ceased to be in bankruptcy since December 21st. There have been representations that there was a series of actions taken by this board assessing fees and penalties for various breaches of the ordinance, and that those actions should be rescinded due to the automatic stay. And I disagree with that. I think that the city was not properly noticed of the bankruptcy. There are a number of arguments, including the fact that there's an exception to the automatic stay called the police power exception that allows basically a government to operate to protect the health and safety of a community. And those types of actions are not subject to the automatic stay. And the bottom line is that if NASCO wishes to get an order from the bankruptcy court, it could, because the bankruptcy case is still open. They would have to make a motion to open it for purposes of stay interpretation. But NASCO could go ahead and seek an order, but I would feel comfortable going to bankruptcy court to defend the city and the board for its orders. But I think that ultimately all those issues may be moot if the board decides that the franchise expired by its own terms or by operation of law before or after bankruptcy.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Thank you. Very helpful. Mr. Intuck, anything else before I go to representatives from NASCO?
Sure. So again, to clarify, it was a very short and limited time of the bankruptcy from August to December. The 2017 bill that was unpaid was listed in that bankruptcy proceeding as an outstanding debt to LAD.
It was?
It was listed.
Yes.
It was. They alleged that they are unaware that they had outstanding, but it was listed in their bankruptcy proceedings. Also, they did provide a copy of the purchase and sale agreement, and it was also listed in the purchase and sale agreement as an outstanding debt to LADOT. Our 2018 franchise invoice was issued prior to the bankruptcy in January of 2018. Our 2019 franchise invoice was sent after the bankruptcy proceeding ended. And as we heard, the two violations that happened that were issued and paid out by the trustee in October of 2018 were valid and were based on not having a bond on record and not having the proper levels of insurance. And so, which was really the crux of why we had the continuation. But the other key finding is that we didn't extend the franchise agreement, so we're still in the same situation of it's expired, and now we need to move forward with the abandonment of the pipeline.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Intuck. So I have, it looks like one card on number 16, but representatives from NASCO, you can speak, whoever wants to speak first, in whatever order, you can speak on 16 or 17.
Thank you.
You are...
Garrick Hollander.
Is it Hollander?
Hollander?
What's your last name?
Hollander.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So if it, you would call 16 first, and I may have misnumbered it.
Doesn't matter. We got you on both.
I want to put them together because the sanctions issue and the violation of the stay, violation of the automatic stay really goes to matter number 17, not number 16. So if I could just put them all together and try to wrap it all together.
You can for your presentation, of course.
Okay, I appreciate that. So I want to step back. So last hearing, we were focusing on the violation, the claim, the lack of insurance, and the bond, and the penalties that arose from those deficiencies, if you will. And the issue was was violation of the automatic stay with respect to that. And that's what the brief that I filed was focused on, was with respect to the violation of the automatic stay. So first I want to start with that. I'm not sure why council says that notice was required. First of all, again, NASCO, the people that own NASCO and operate NASCO and control NASCO didn't file the bankruptcy. It was filed by Derek Lamarck and Marshall Goldberg. So what they put in the schedules, I don't know, and then a trustee took over the operation. So you need to understand that, number one. Number two, the Ninth Circuit Bankruptcy Appellate Panel, and I've cited in my pleading, says, and I will quote, notice is irrelevant, but let me quote what the case says. Since the automatic stay is effective against the world, regardless of notice, acts in violation of the automatic stay are automatically void ab initio. So it's not a matter of the city, the board rescinding anything. It's not a matter of giving notice. Notice is not required. And there are several Ninth Circuit BAP cases that quoted that I cited. That's unequivocal. That's the law with respect to the sanctions. So getting back to the sanctions issue. And the other issue, let me step back for a moment. When we left last time, there was, I viewed, a try to work it out kind of scenario. And that's always what I try to do, try to work it out. I was very disappointed because I reached out to, not you, sir, but the city attorney who is here. I left multiple messages and emails and didn't get a response. I'm not sure why, and I'm not criticizing. The point is we're trying to resolve it. We had environmental insurance. That was issue number one. We didn't have enough. We got the insurance. And since the last 3 weeks, we got the insurance. We had $5 million. We had no claims against that. And now we have $25 million. We didn't have a bond before. We actually had it at the last hearing, but in any event, we have a bond. So the only issue remains is the payout. And this further goes to also, A, trying to work it out, and B, it goes to even if the sanctions weren't voided by the operation of law, by the bankruptcy, they should be certainly mitigated for not only the reasons that the debtor doesn't, that NASCO didn't have control, but NASCO was operating in good faith constantly. NASCO worked with Mr. Entuck. They had a conversation, and Mr. Yone can speak to it, but I believe it was on February 27th, and again on March something, he can give you the dates, where Mr. Entuck specifically and Mr. Yone engaged in a conversation about paying the claim amount over time. And there was talks of a 12-month term. And then all of a sudden, that just went away. So, again, assuming you were to ignore Ninth Circuit law, which says void ab initio, it's appellate, Ninth Circuit appellate panel, assume you ignore that, which I don't think you can. And I think you're subject to sanctions if you do. But assuming you ignore it, then the question is how much sanctions should it be? Well, the debtor has complied with everything, number one, NASCO. Number two, they've tried to work with the city. And the fines talk about up to, which is the maximum. You're so bad, you didn't do anything. That's not the case. They were working cooperatively, trying to work with the city, and then all of a sudden, the city goes dark and then doesn't cooperate any payment plan, and then there's, this city, this hearing where you're sanctioned. So for those reasons, in addition to the fact that the bankruptcy estate is a different entity than the debtor as a matter of law, the debtor, NASCO, and the bankruptcy estate was deprived of due process of this hearing. That's a fact. There's Supreme Court case, take that back, Ninth Circuit Bankruptcy Appellate Panel, the Farmer versus Crocker National Bank. Upon the filing of a bankruptcy estate, upon the filing of a bankruptcy, an estate is created. Like a corporation or a trust, a bankruptcy estate is a distinct legal entity. The board's actions did not accord the bankruptcy estate nor NASCO due process. It was done in violation of the automatic stay. They didn't get notice of it, the trustee, and the debtor, NASCO, was deprived of that due process. With respect to the termination of the contract, now we're hearing from Mr. Entuck that, it expired 9 months ago. Maybe it did. I don't know. That's a new fact to me because we just secured a multiple six-figure insurance policy on the premise that we had a contract, and now he's saying it didn't exist. I don't know why he was negotiating with Mr. Yone over the last few months over this issue. But, and assuming, okay, fine, it expired. Then the question is that valid, and why can't we enter into an extension? There was a 10-year contract before. Why is the city refusing to enter into an extension? We are doing everything possible. We've offered to pay the entire balance within a month. We've already paid $20,000 toward that balance. We got the insurance. We got the bond. And I will say that I would request, to the extent the court is inclined to make a finding, today that the contract is terminated and we have no rights and we're ordered to abandon, I would request that that be continued to give us time, A, for NASCO to file briefs and for other parties similarly situated to file amicus briefs for the constitutional violation of an unlawful taking under the Fifth Amendment. And I will cite, and this wasn't before me, and that's why it wasn't in the pleading. The United States Supreme Court has held that a regulation which denies all economically beneficial productive use of land will require compensation under the Takings Clause. That is Palacio versus 1943 Rhode Island, 533 U.S. 606. And even if it doesn't deprive the owner of all economically beneficial use, there are other factors: the economical impact of the regulation on the claimant, the extent of which the regulation has interfered with the distinct investment-backed expectations, and the character of the governmental action. Shutting this down is depriving NASCO of its ability to continue to operate. The doctor here has testified about, we don't know if we're going to file bankruptcy. Well, if there's a contract, we certainly won't, because we're making money. And as far as the issues he raised about liability, well, that's all covered by the insurance, so I don't see issues with that. So I would request, again, opportunity. I don't understand why the city's not willing to enter into a contract, but if we have to pursue action, we'll do so under the Fifth Amendment, but we would ask that briefs be allowed for us as well as other parties similarly situated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Jordan, thank you. You can have a seat, Mr. Holner. Mr. Jordan, and we all may have questions, but before we do, could I get your response to kind of what you've heard regarding what we're facing this morning, both from Mr. Intuck regarding the expiration, as well as from Ms. Liu regarding this bankruptcy issue, which even based on my limited experience with bankruptcy, I tend to agree with her that if we had a stay of a certain window, but the stay at this point would, by all points, be lifted for anything we were to do today, and your response to anything that Mr. Hollander said.
A lot was said. Let me just try to bring it back into the framework of what is actually before the board versus what is not before the board. So you have two items, item number 16 and item number 17. The discussion has sort of blurred the two, but to split them apart somewhat. So item number 16 has a number of recommendations. I have some suggested clarifications. Item number 16 really, at its essence, request the board to recognize that the franchise has expired. The franchise was adopted back in 2017. By its own terms, it was valid for 1 year. There was a 9-month option that could or could not have been exercised. In this case, Mr. Intuck has indicated that the 9-month extension was not authorized.
And just on that point, it was not exercised because, Mr. Intuck, they did not appear with those groups of entities that appeared requesting for an extension?
We decided, one, we didn't have any communication with them from 2018 until late. When was the first time I heard from these guys? I want to say probably December of last year or early this year. It's the first time we ever had communication where they were responsive. Our emails never bounced. Our mail was never returned. We sent numerous notices, but at that point we had no payment for 2017. We had no payment for 2018, and they were the only franchisee that was not following the terms of all the rest of them. So we did not automatically.
For that reason, we did not automatically renew them.
Extend it because they were non-compliant, non-responsive.
So we had a carve-out for them in essence.
We left them off because they were the only pipeline franchisee in the city who failed to respond, failed to pay, failed to have their insurance and bonds.
Okay.
So
go ahead, Mr. Jordan.
So under the terms of the franchise, it expired on July 16th, 2018. Had the city exercised the 9-month option, which it didn't, but had it, then the franchise would have expired on April 16th. So in no event would the franchise, in any event, it would have expired by now, by today. In fact, it expired back in July 16th, 2018. The specific breakdown of board actions in item number 16 all relate to the expiration of the franchise. No one terminated the franchise, no actions were taken, the franchise simply expired. I don't want to go into the details of what some of my recommendations are, but that's what I have to say. The bankruptcy case that was open for about 4 months, starting in August of 2018, which is, by the way, after the franchise expired, and ended in December of 2018. That has no effect on the expiration or not of the franchise. Bankruptcy doesn't allow a contract to, automatically get extended. There's automatic stays that go into effect, but this franchise expired on its own terms prior to the bankruptcy. The other issue before the board is the proposed penalty, which is item number 17. After the franchise expires, there are certain obligations that the franchisee continues to have. When the franchise expires, they can no longer use the pipeline, but they are still required to have insurance in place, have a bond in place, and technically pay the fees because the pipeline physically still exists under the road. Those obligations under the franchise to continue to have insurance, bond, and pay fees continue after the expiration up until the point where the franchisee has either physically removed the pipeline from the street or they have appropriately abandoned the pipeline, which involves abandonment plan. It's approved by the city. The pipeline is essentially cleaned and capped, and then it's allowed to remain under the street. Until those things have happened, the franchise requires the franchisee to continue to have insurance, bond, and technically pay fees. And so there's no reason why they shouldn't still have that, even though the franchise has expired.
Okay. I was hoping that I could say hey to everybody before we moved on, but we had to finish our train of thought. What age group do we have? They look like they're fifth. Oh, great! Thank you. Oh, you not only saw one, you heard one. We are in the middle of a hearing regarding an energy franchise in the city of Los Angeles. So we have the city and representatives from that company here as well. Hi, everybody. Hi. Hey. Just a quick point about us, and then we'll let you on your way. We're 5 members plus our bureau representatives of the 3rd largest department in the city. It's Public Works. So you've already been in touch with Public Works today. When you got up and walked out on a sidewalk, we maintain and repair the sidewalks in the city as well as the roads and trash pickup. All of that is part of our department. We were nominated by the mayor, appointed by the mayor of Los Angeles, and confirmed by the city council. We have our meetings in this amazing room every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. And this is a room that is used a lot for television shows and movies as well. So thank you for being in City Hall today. Anybody else want to say anything? Thank you. And great to see our future leaders in the building. All right, thanks. All right, bye, guys. So,
if I could just wrap up, I'm sorry I'm blathering on here.
I wanted to get our future leaders to get a shout out before they
absolutely
left.
I didn't see them actually. So, 2 real quick points. During that brief window where there was a bankruptcy case, in October of 2018, the city, the Board of Public Works imposed its first penalty against NASCO for failure to have insurance. At that time, there's no question they were in violation because the insurance amount was well below what the ordinance requires. And I think there may have been a type of 1 or more categories that they didn't have any insurance. But in any event, the first penalty was imposed in October of 2018. That is during the period of time when the bankruptcy was going on. However, it is not subject to the automatic stay. When the city takes action pursuant to its ordinance for health and safety, police powers, there is an exception to the automatic stay, so the city does not lose the ability to do that. The penalty amount today is $25,000 because this is the second violation occurring within the year. NESCO has indicated that they have all of the insurance. They're up to $25 million, that's true. However, their environmental insurance, also known as the pollution insurance, it's not the right type of insurance. The city requires insurance, the environmental insurance, pollution insurance, for both gradual and sudden releases. You can imagine the environmental harm caused by a sudden release versus a gradual release. There is harm, there is pollution. The insurance needs to cover both. And my understanding from our patrolling administrator, who's been working with the city's risk manager, is that the insurance they have, while it is $25 million, it doesn't cover both those types of releases, and so therefore it doesn't comply with what the ordinance requires. So that is why we're here before with a second violation. While they do have the right dollar amount, it's just not complete. There would still be exposure to the city that would not be covered by the insurance were there to be a release based on that insurance.
Okay. While we molded the two together, I want to separate them first for a comment, and then I'll take questions from my colleagues. On number 16, this is a request that the Board of Public Works make a determination as to whether or not this franchise has either terminated or expired, correct, Mr. Jordan? It's one of the, it's termination/expired, right?
It's expiration.
Yes.
There is no termination.
Right, so it's an expiration. Either it expired or it didn't, and that's the question for us, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And my understanding from you is, and Mr. Intuck is, Mr. Intuck says, well, it expired, in fact, back in July of 2018. And your point, Mr. Jordan, is that, okay, yes, maybe it expired back in July of 2018, but even if it didn't, it expired as of this month, correct?
Yes, 9 months. If a 9-month option had been exercised, that would have moved the July 2018 expiration all the way out to April 16th, 2019.
Okay. So either way, we're being asked to make to interpret rather than to make a decision. It sounds like to me. I don't know that we have a choice here. It either expired by its terms or it didn't, and it sounds like today either way it did. Commissioner Cabello and then Commissioner Davis.
Thank you, President James. You stole the comments right out of my mouth. No, it's totally fine. Again, to reiterate, I think my question last time was, I had several and many comments as well, but we were trying to determine ownership. And so, Mr. Jordan, whoever the owner is before or after the time of bankruptcy, regardless of the insurance levels, which is, I understand from your comments earlier, is still due and have to be the appropriate type of insurance. All of this is moot because there was a 9-month extension that was never renewed. Is that correct, Mr. Jordan?
Yeah, the insurance is an obligation that they have to have during the continuous insurance, both during the term of the franchise and after the franchise until the pipeline's been abandoned.
Understood. But what my point is, regardless of ownership, regardless of bankruptcy, regardless of stays, regardless of all of these things, it is moot. It is an expiration. It is not a proactive termination.
Yes.
Because we did not renew the contract or renew the franchise agreement with a 9-month extension.
Yes, and even if we had, it would also be expired now.
But I'd like to prove my first point, not that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cabello. Commissioner Davis.
So basically, in number 16 before us, it's been established, or at least allegedly, it has been established that there is an expiration that has already occurred in 2 instances, either initially without the inaction of the extension of 9 months, or even if in fact we had the extension of the 9 months as of April the 16th, it would have been expired. It is in fact expired. The item 17 is the penalty that should be enforced of $25,000 because in this case of not the appropriate insurance, even though they have insurance and obviously according to the testimony, they thought that they had the appropriate insurance. They went further to express that the insurance that they currently have is an extension financially from the original insurance that they had in the past, but yet it has been determined in the testimony of our city attorney before our board that even in their thoughts, their insurance is not the appropriate insurance that is needed. So when we looked at the city attorney's testimony, there were many things that were evident. One is that given the fact that these extensions exist, they don't shy away from representing us should we make a decision to move forward in this case. And yet at the same time, there is some remote possibility that the federal court will, on the other hand, if given some reconsideration, afford the party an opportunity to be considered in their case because of the bankruptcy. And further, it was stated by our own administrator that they did list the fee that we own in their bankruptcy proceedings. I'm not clear if this party has made every effort to, one, inform us of what is going on, because according to the city attorney's testimony, it was not a clear notification from them to us about their status. Yet, when they did present in the last hearing, they did state to us their status. And then secondly, I'm worried about what their intentions are. They came here, they've testified. It would appear that their intentions is to get appropriate and to comply with what they need to comply with to stay in business and be a licensee for the city of Los Angeles. And so to the degree that they can, I don't know what the options are in terms of us working with them to comply in any of these ways. For example, if they pay the $25,000 that's due, the fact that the franchise has clearly expired based upon what I have tried to comprehend, we have the authority as the board to do what as it relates to working with them in terms of helping them to get a license in the future, if in fact their intention is to do right by the city, though there's been some confusion clearly, some misrepresentation, maybe not intentionally, maybe so, I don't know. But those are all questions that I have. My inclination is to help people to get on the right track and to move forward in doing business in the city of Los Angeles. The degree to which we evaluate that is something that certainly, hopefully, we can discuss here. But the facts are clear to me. I don't know about my other colleagues, but they're clear to me that there's been an expiration and that there is a need for at least a $25,000. And I'm still unclear about the intentions of the board, but I mean of the
Good afternoon.
complainants. But
This is the
the
Human
fact
Relations
that they are
Commission
here, I would
regular
think
meeting,
that they want to
April
do
24th,
business with us and do the
2019,
right thing.
12 p.m. Call to order
Hey,
and
thank you,
roll call.
Commissioner
Maya
Davis.
Ferdman.
Let me,
Good morning or good afternoon.
let's take care of
Commissioner
agenda
Becerra
item
Núñez.
number 16.
Present. Commissioner De La Cruz
Because I've got
Fiesca.
Mr. Entuck come forward.
Calza. Commissioner Mack.
Because just hearing the public hearing, I know I've got
Here.
3
Commissioner
votes on
Kazi.
expiration.
Commissioner Rothman.
'Cause I know where I stand,
Commissioner
and I just heard
Commissioner
statements from
Solis-Montero.
Commissioners Cabello and
Commissioner
Davis.
Tovar. Here.
Mr. Entuck, what do you want to add before we take a vote
We'd
on
like
expiration, then we'll
to,
move to 17?
congratulate
And
our outgoing
take
commissioner
Commissioner
from
Davis's points on where we go forward with
who
that.
has
There are a
accepted
couple things to
position
clarify
with the
what
United
was
States
said.
Congress. We wish him the best
This
of luck
pipeline
in everything he
is
does.
a hazard, designated as a
We'd like
hazardous
to
high-risk pipeline by
recognize
the Office of State Fire
Jan
Marshal
Shula,
because it's in a
comedian,
dense urban area.
Cambodian
This
Genocide
pipeline had 3
Remembrance
leaks
Day Today is
prior to it
actually
being
Armenian
idled
Genocide
7 years
Remembrance
ago.
Day, and there
This
are lots
pipeline
of
is not
activities taking
required
place
for
in
them to
the city.
continue to
And
operate.
today is
They
Denim
can
Day to
still
bring
continue to
awareness to
operate the drill
violence
site on
against
14th and Broadway.
women, and
They
there
have a
were
pipeline, they have access, and they
activities
use a
here at
pipeline.
City
They've been
Hall.
using the pipeline for the past decade with
I'd
a
like to
different
turn it
company,
over
Crimson,
to our
that
second
they can
vice
transport
president,
crude oil
your
out of their
representative
pipeline.
Ms.
So
would
the
like to make,
allegation that this would somehow
remarks
stop
about the
their
tragedies in Sri
business
Lanka.
is
Thank you very
fallacy.
much.
They've had pipeline leaks on
1
18th
week
and Hill
ago,
Street in downtown
millions of
LA.
Catholics were
They've had a leak at
devastated
1220
by the accidental
South
burning
Olive Street
of
in
their
downtown
beloved
LA.
Notre Dame
And then had a
Cathedral.
pipeline leak at 17th
United
and
with
Broadway in
Parisians in
downtown
the
LA.
world,
The
a
reason
renewed
that
hope for
they
the
don't meet
resurrection
the
of this
insurance
historic
requirements of not being
landmark,
issued a certificate
which
by
transcends
the
religion,
CAO Risk Management
nationality, and
Office is because
culture,
they don't have the
was
insurance
strengthened
coverage
with powerful
for leaks.
prayers when
This
Parisians
line
gathered
has not been
on
repaired,
Easter
as far as
Sunday.
we know. This line has
Sadly,
been
that
idled
same
for
holy day,
at least
our
7
hearts
years.
filled with
There
sorrow
is
and
no
horror
public benefit.
as
We
the
have
world
spent more
witnessed
time and
another
money
senseless
at these
terrorist
hearings
attack,
than the cost of the
this time in
$15,000
Sri Lanka,
franchise.
against
The
Christians and
$15,000
Catholics,
franchise represents
celebrating the
less than a
resurrection
third
of Christ,
1% of
as
our
well as
total
the
franchise
10-year
revenue.
rebirth of their
We bring
nation
in about
after a
4.5 million in pipeline
25-year
franchise
civil
revenue.
war.
This $15 million
Over
has no
350
public
lives
benefit.
were
We
lost,
are
including
wasting
at least
public
45
resources to
children
continue
and
to
500
negotiate and
wounded
argue
by
about
coordinated
the future of
suicide
this
bombings
pipeline. There is no
where
future
worshipers and
need or
tourists,
usage for
including
it.
Americans,
The Jefferson
gathered
drill
in
site that it
churches and
goes
hotels.
to is going to be
Sri
abandoned.
Lankan
They do
officials are
not
now
use this pipeline.
apologizing to their people for
Right
ignoring
now, the
repeated
drill site,
warnings,
the Nasco
not
drill site
arresting
on 14th
known
Broadway
suspects,
does not use this
nor
pipeline.
providing
No one
security
has
that
used this
could have
pipeline for
prevented
many,
this
many
horrible
years.
tragedy.
Other thing I wanted
Yet,
to say,
in
sorry,
spite of the
I'm
fear
under the
of
weather today.
additional attacks,
The,
hundreds of Sri
allegation
Lankans
that,
held prayer vigils in the streets
was not
in
negotiated in
solidarity
good
with the
faith
victims and their families.
You know,
Father Jude
this
Fernando
has been
of
a very
Sri Lanka,
interesting experience
Saint
because
Anthony
as we
Shrine
talked about before, we
stated,
had a
and I
very
quote,
changing story.
"Our God is
Last
not a
time
God
it
of
was
vengeance,
the penalties
but a God of
were for the
love,
franchise
a
fee,
God of
which we
peace.
found to be
We can
invalid,
rebuild
that the
our
payments from
church,
the trustee
but
were
not
for the
lives.
violations, not for
Pray
the
for
outstanding,
us."
annual
I'm very proud
two-year-
that our
two-year annual payments
HRC
at that time that had not
advocate,
been paid.
Maya Friedman,
confirmed
and
with
fellow
FMS, we confirmed with the Office
and
of Finance,
other
that was
commissioners
not
who may have
true.
attended,
We-
represented
we've
our
had the,
commission at an event last night
talking about
with
trying
the
to be
Council
collaborative.
General of
You
Sri
know,
Lanka
I've had
and
to deal
other
with the
U.S.
operator
Sri
using
Lankan
profanity with me on the
organizations
phone.
in
I've had them
memory
make
of the lives
unannounced,
lost at this
intimidating show
tragic
up
time.
at our office for our staff members who felt
Maya
uncomfortable.
would like to make a few
We've had
comments, and
minimal
after that, I'd like
conversation
to
or
have a moment of
communications
silence.
since our hearing 2.5 weeks
Thank
ago.
you, Commissioner.
This has not been
So
a
I'll keep it very
collaborative,
brief.
do the right thing
Last night,
situation.
we were
This has
fortunate to
been
be
a
present
combative,
alongside the Consular Corps of
not
Los Angeles and a
non-professional
number of different
experience.
community leaders and
Especially dealing with our
organizations
other
who came
45
to offer their
pipeline franchise
condolences
operators.
to the Sri
None of
Lankan
them have
Consul General as well
behaved
as
in
the
this way.
people of Sri Lanka
And this
in
is why
general.
this is the
It was really
standalone
moving
only
to
case in the
see
city of all of our franchisees
folks
that
from
has
the
not
Islamic
paid
Center,
their annual
folks from,
fees, that was, took
pastor
years to get into
gave a
compliance with the
blessing.
bond,
There were
still does
Buddhist
not have
leaders
insurance
who gave
requirements.
blessings
And
as
so,
well.
just moving
And that
forward
it was
on
also,
16
I think for me
and the
personally,
recommendation
unfortunate
would
and
be,
sad to
if
see
we're going to do
under
amended
a week after our interfaith
recognize
Seder,
that the
we
franchise
came
did
together again
expire
in an interfaith
on,
space, but this time in
July
mourning
17,
rather than
2018. I do have a copy
celebration.
of your approved
But that
board
just goes
report
to show the
that
importance
says
of
to that
these
effect that I can make
interfaith
a cookie
connections
copy.
and how we're all
Also,
there for each other
section
even in these moments
4.7
of
has two portions. They can either
Thank you so much. And now
dig
let's
up
take a
and
moment of
remove the
silence
pipeline, or they can
in
come back to
memory
the board
and
with a pipeline
honor of
abandonment
those who
plan to
lost their
abandon in
lives,
place
the
pursuant
families
to
who are
the city's
suffering,
pipeline
and to
abandonment
pray
with the
that
Office of
somehow how our
administration,
world
which
is
the
able
Office
to
State Fire
unite
Marshal would
to
like to have a
prevent
meeting
this from
to
happening again.
abandon this line, because they too agree that the line should be abandoned. And then lastly, they had proposed an installment plan of $5,000 a month. They currently have an outstanding balance of $64,402.94.
Thank you very much. And now I turn it back to our president,
I don't
Courtney
think,
Morgan Green.
at the time, I was not entertaining a payment plan because they had no bond. Now that they have a bond, I think if we're going to do a payment plan, they should at least pay their 2019 balance to stop the accruing expenses, because by August it'll go up to $68,000. And then at that point, if there's any, the $45,000, approximately $45,000 remaining, if we wanted to do a 9-month payment plan, that would resolve the outstanding balance before the next bill would be due in January, or invoice issued in January of 2020. So I just wanted to clarify those issues and make sure you're aware that
Everyone had to make it out of the hood in order to be
today
successful.
and being clear
You see,
on
Nipsey never
the
left.
facts.
He was a neighborhood
Thank you, Mr.
staple,
Intuck.
the embodiment
I
of
have a
zonification
speaker card
of
for
the Crenshaw
Amit
district.
Yonay on
He championed the beauty of
agenda
South
items
LA
16 and 17.
He
Good
saw it as
morning.
ground
My
zero
name is
for
Amit
art,
Yonai.
culture, and America, and firmly believed that
I'm
we, as a
managing
community,
member
should
of
be the ones to
NASCO.
capitalize on that. He sought
I
to make
just want to
Crenshaw a
clarify a
destination,
few things. First of
to
all, when
create
you
local
talk
ownership
about
of business and
abandonment, and you
intellectual
said
and real
just that
property.
you
He
clean
championed
the
local
pipe
innovation by
and you
creating the
cap
first
it,
of what he hoped was many
that
STEM
allows
education
you to
and
have
business
an
incubation
option
hubs
at a
with the
certain point
co-working,
to reactivate it.
and STEM space Vector 90.
We can ask
He was at the
Mr.
forefront,
Antuck
along with
what
City
it entails to
Council, of
abandon it.
Destination
It
Crenshaw,
means
an
put
outdoor
put
art installation
concrete
to run a
throughout the
mile
whole
along the
pipe,
Crenshaw
which means you
corridor.
can't use it
He
ever
improved the
again.
recreational facilities
So
and gave shoes to
essentially,
every child at
by
59th Street
having it
Elementary School.
abandoned,
He was known to pay
we
for the
can never
funerals of
use
those
it
who
again.
could not afford to do
That's
so.
that's a
He found housing and
critical
jobs for
point,
the homeless.
in my
He helped
opinion.
those with
Second,
felony convictions,
on February 20th, I got a
can be
call
legally
from
discriminated
Mr.
against in
Antuck
housing, employment, and strip of their voting rights.
regarding if
He
we
helped them find
put the
housing and
bond
jobs
in
and gave them
place, the
clothing,
insurance in place,
from his
and we've
clothing store with
made
which
all
to re-enter
efforts to
society.
do that, and you could see,
He was
I'm not
an
an
ever-present
insurance
example
guy.
of a family man.
We have insurance brokers,
He emphasized family
and this is the
community in
insurance that they
everything,
gave us. If
doing
we have to
everything in
change it,
partnership
we'll
with his
change
brother,
it.
his father. He was a supportive
But he said,
cheered on his daughter's
put the bond in place, put the
volleyball team,
insurance in
played endlessly
place,
with his
and we'll
stepson
work on a
Amy
payment
Boyd, who was
plan.
just 2 years old.
And the third issue I'd like to just reiterate is that
I don't
in
know,
October, we were
completely know what to
we
make
got
of
the
Nipsey Hussle's
penalty
journey
of
or our
20,000,
response to it. I'm still
which
trying
the
to wrap my
trustee
head around
paid,
that, but I think
and
it
that
speaks
was when
volumes
the
to
company
core
was under
values and ethics of
Chapter
South
11
LA
bankruptcy.
and the shifting relationship between the city and the residents of South
Basically,
LA.
Thank you, Mr.
In honor of
Yonai.
Nipsey, perhaps it is time to
Yes,
evaluate
Mr. Hollander.
or reevaluate some of these themes and inconsistencies.
I just want to,
In
I'm
his
not sure
honor,
if
we
the
must certainly
city attorney is
continue to
aware,
invest in the people of South
and I
Los
didn't bring
Angeles,
this because I didn't know it was
to house the
relevant, but
homeless,
he
to
made the
improve our
argument
schools, to clothe
that
and provide housing, employment, and
the
dignity
issuance
to
of the
formerly
penalty during the
incarcerated,
bankruptcy
and to help young
was
people
not
become
violation of the
marketable
automatic
and
stay
tech,
because it
and
was
to innovate and go into
to
business for
enforce
themselves,
safety
and then to
and
remain and
regulatory.
reinvest in South
And
Los
I
Angeles.
respect
In his
the
honor,
argument.
we
However,
can no longer
there
assume
there
that all
are
present or past gang members are engaged
I don't know if
in
it's
criminal
minutes or
activity,
rulings. I don't know
but
what it is,
complex,
but
multifaceted
the
individuals,
board
just like everyone else,
has
who might just be
issued
ex-Nipsey.
again,
Anyhow,
it's a ruling
he
or
called his
minutes
journey
that
a marathon.
specifically says that it's for collection of a claim of the appellant's owing. So I just want to
And
put that on
because
the
he was
record
just
for
beginning,
purposes of
you may
the
hear this
basis
common call to
for
action so
awarding
prevalent in South
sanctions.
LA since his death.
Excuse me, for
The
awarding the
marathon.
penalties at the end of the day. I respect the argument, but there's specific facts that says it's to collect
And
the
now,
claim.
you know what?
And for insurance, it says both, but it's a question of fact. And so,
I'm sorry, we have
to the extent you're going
have to
to
move on,
issue
mercifully
an
to
award,
minutes, so if
sanctions,
everybody
again,
could take a look at the
there's no argument that changed here. I was just saying, the original, there's a second violation, you're asserting 25,000, which is based on the initial 10,000. So the argument that I was making was the 10,000 was a violation of the automatic stay. So you don't get to the
You have
25,000.
April agenda with
Now,
March minutes.
if there's a new notice, and I don't know if there's a new notice, I'm not going to argue that anymore, whether today's for 10,000, but it certainly shouldn't be for 25. Maybe it's 10, and 10's the max, which for circumstances, I think it should be less. But I just want to clarify that factual difference. With all due respect, I think he may not be aware because it sounds like maybe he doesn't attend all the hearings. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hollander. Dr. Williams, you have a card in on number 17. We're going to consider number 17 with number 16, so go ahead. We're going to vote on them separately, but consider them for purposes of the hearing. So here you go.
April 24th.
Okay. Dr. Tom Williams, 60 years ago, I worked with oil companies. I still am interested in oil companies. Liability is an important issue, especially these days, because all the systems are getting old, just like me. So I'm not performing as well, but I have insurance. Does the city of Los Angeles recognize that for so many months they were uninsured? Is there a liability there if something had happened? There's a mention of a bond. How much is the bond? What are the conditions of the bond? Is it an immediate access bond so that the fire department can hire somebody to come in and suck up the oil like they had to do down on Olive Street? They assessed the St. James Oil Company for a blowout on Olive Street, and it was paid. However, how do we protect the people of downtown Los Angeles? There's an oil field under the city of Los Angeles. Same problem goes with the Los Angeles oil field, where all of the companies have largely gone bankrupt and or dissolved. So who has the long-term liability, responsibility for protecting me and a lot of other people? We're quite concerned about this having a bond of appropriate size, immediate access for the fire department or public works to remediate and recover. So we're quite upset with this. And a question as to temporal. They haven't used it for 7 years?
2 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. So let's let's move to number 16. That's what we have before us for a vote. Mr. Jordan, I'm going to make a motion on number 16 to amend it pursuant to your recommended amendments based on the expiration discussion that we had. Would you like to read those amendments into the record?
Is there any discussion?
I'll be happy to.
And that'll be my motion on number 16.
So, first of all, the title of the item, hearing on ordinance number 184966. It's not termination, it's expiration of the NASCO Petroleum LLC pipeline franchise. Item number 1, under item number 16, I would amend to change the date from March 16th, 2019 to July 16th, 2018.
Motion carries.
For item number 2, I would go ahead and just delete that. It's not necessary. The board in item number 1 is finding that the franchise has expired. Item number 3, I would change the word termination to expiration. Again, the board's recognizing that the ordinance has expired, the franchise ordinance. Number 4 is a technical change under the ordinance that's expired. NASCO has to comply with certain provisions. So I would change number 4 to read as follows.
Madam
Order
President,
NASCO to comply
Council,
with section 4.7 of
good
ordinance number
afternoon. Thank you for having us
184966.
here.
Whether it chooses to dig the
Today,
pipeline out of
our
the
members
street
of the
or to
TAC,
abandon the pipeline,
Lucky
it's really
Fuller,
their option.
The chair
So the
for
board would be
the
ordering them to
House
comply.
Employment.
Number 5, I would delete.
Gianna Herrera is
It's
the
duplicative
Law
of
Enforcement
number 4.
Committee Chair.
Number 6,
and,
I would request, I would amend number 6 to read,
our
request
Housing and
the
Homeless
petroleum administrator to report the status of NASCO's compliance
First, I'd
with
like
section
to
4.7
give a recap
of ordinance number
of our Transgender Day of
184966
Visibility, which
to
happened
the Board of Public
March
Works
29.
within 120 days
We all
of
met
this
at
order.
Rotunda at 9
And
a.m.
number 7,
and then
I would leave
proceeded
unchanged.
to go to
And
the
I'll
city
give
chambers
these written
to have a
notes to the
three
executive officer so he can reflect
trans
that in the record.
Okay, that will be my motion.
as our honorees.
Seconded by Commissioner
As city
Cabello.
council chambers
Any
at
objection?
9
And
a.m.
Commissioner Caloza.
That
Any
at 6
objection?
p.m.
Without
we had a
objection, that will be
party
the
at
order.
Red
Any
Line
issues sending the order as
Bar
amended
on 6th
forthwith?
Street.
We'll send the order as amended forthwith. Let me call number 17, even though we've had a hearing on it. Just because I'll have a question for Mr. Intuck regarding the 10,000 versus 25,000 argument that was just made by Mr. Hollander. On number 17, pipeline franchise agreements, NASCO Petroleum LLC, non-compliance of insurance requirements, violations, and monetary penalties. Recommending that the board first direct the petroleum administrator to issue a violation to NASCO Petroleum LLC for failure to comply with section 5.2 insurance requirements of the franchise ordinance. Number 2, approve the monetary penalty assessed to NASCO Petroleum LLC in the amount of $25,000 for failure to comply with section 5.2 insurance requirements of the franchise ordinance. And this had been previously continued. So, Mr. Intuck, Mr. Hollander made the claim that the 25,000 is kind of the second chapter. The first chapter is 10,000, and we're actually technically in the first chapter for them. Is that something that you would agree to, that we should be looking at as a $10,000 penalty, or are we still looking at a $25,000 penalty?
In meeting with the city attorney prior to this, our franchise pipeline violations, the first and second violation, or third violation for that matter, are about violations of the same item. So it's not a, if you didn't pay your franchise fee and your bond and your insurance, it's 10,000, 25, 50,000. It's each occurrence, it's each individual item is 10,000, and then the second one is 25, and then the third is 50,000. According to our bankruptcy attorney that spoke, we were not held, we were not going to waive the $10,000 violations that were issued and paid in October of 2018. Those still stand. We were not held to that bankruptcy proceeding, and that was a moot point, according to our city attorney that came up. So
Who's still here, by the way, just so the record reflects.
and so, in our interpretation, we've gone through the noticing period of initial notice, first notice, additional 30-day notice to comply, additional 10-day notice to comply. We've gone long past. We should have done this in December of 2018. We gave additional time, and here we are in April. The new insurance that was submitted was on April 15th. After this was already, the third notice was sent, and this was continued. This should have been heard previous to now. So this is the second violation of the insurance requirement, which is $25,000, which is
Okay, then that'll be my motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Cabello, any objection? Without objection, that'll be the order. Any issues sending, and I'm sorry, Mr. Jordan, no need to amend anything in agenda item number 17?
No.
Okay. Any issues sending 17 forthwith? We'll send 17 forthwith. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. Thank you, everyone that came out today that's not normally here. We have an oral report. Dr. Campos, we've cleared our voting items, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Oral report this morning, 6th Street Viaduct update, Bureau of Engineering. Ms. Allen and Ms. Moy still here. Thank you for your patience this morning. Now it's this afternoon.
Yes.
That happens on occasion.
I already changed my notes to good afternoon, so we're
Yes. We, sometimes a Wednesday meeting will have hearings like that, and we had 2 or 3 of them today, so go ahead.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Julie Allen with the Bureau of Engineering. I'm the Program Manager of the 6th Street Viaduct Project. And before I get into the details of the status for our quarterly report, I wanted to give some rather blunt commentary on the project and the overall delivery. When we initially selected the construction manager, general contractor, or CMGC method for this project, it was with the goal of having a delivery method where we can incorporate input from the contractor during the design phase and get their expertise as we complete the design so that we go into construction with a contractor that's ready to hit the ground running, as opposed to a typical design bid build where they're bidding with a short period of time. So during the first several packages of this project, we did achieve success. We did have good delivery with the contractor. They were a team member with us. We resolved problems together. And it was an effective use of the CMGC process. Unfortunately, the last 2 construction packages, which are Task Order 4 and Task Order 5 for the foundations and viaduct, we've had a lot more struggles with the contractor and a lot more challenges, and it has resulted in delays in the project, and we now have claims that have been submitted by the contractor in the order of several $1 million, and we'll be continuing to work through these challenges for the remainder of the project. So I just wanted to put that up front before I get into the details of the project. So what you see up here is a slide that's the rendering of the project. I want to go over it a little bit with you before I get into the video that follows, so you can see a little bit of the layout. What you see is that the bridge on the east end starts over the 101 freeway. We have 10 pairs of arches that span over 3 streets on the east side, then 17 railroad tracks in the LA River, followed by another city street on the west side of the bridge, and it touches down in the Arts District at Mateo. So what I'm going to show here is a drone video, so you can see what the progress looks like on site. It's a vantage point that most people don't get to see. So what you see on the right side now is the 5 freeway, which is not part of our project, but then it begins where the arches will first touch down on the east side of the 101 freeway. What you see there is the formwork and the false work over the 101 freeway, and it goes into these individual bends. Right here is where the columns come up out of the ground from the foundations and connect to a frame structure at each bent, where they're going to be building the edge girders and the deck, and then the arches will go from span to span. So what you can see now is all of the false work
At each of these bents, it goes from the abutment 1 through bent 12 and abutment 13, so there are 12 of these columns. It replaces what the original bridge had, which was 40 separate columns, so this new design has much longer spans. We don't have any spans anymore in the 101 freeway. We don't have any spans in the railroad right-of-way or columns or in the LA River, so it's a much improved impact over the project. So you can see now where it's crossing over the railroad tracks, which are United or Union Pacific Railroad, over the LA River, and over the other set of railroad tracks. We have 5 different railroad agencies that we work with on this project with all different requirements and timelines and schedules. What you see now is on the west side of the job. There's one more Y-bent column that will be installed here once the final LADWP power line is relocated out of the area, which should be in the next month or so. And here's where it'll start connecting down to the abutment where it touches down on the west side in the Arts District. So it's almost complete here. That's where the field office is, and on the north side of the viaduct is where part of the park will be. So we'll have 12 acres of new park and public space adjacent and underneath the new viaduct. So I'll get in a little bit more detail in the construction progress that we've had to date. Since the last meeting, we experienced one technical hurdle where the contractor let us know at the end of last year that they didn't feel confident that they could get vibrating rods down into the concrete structure, and this is required because if you don't vibrate the concrete, you'll have big gaps and holes in your concrete structure, which aren't acceptable for the final design. So they let us know that, you can see the photos there on the left is where the Y comes up and starts the arch, and then on the right a zoomed in view of how congested the rebar and post-tensioning are. They were concerned that without being able to vibrate that they wouldn't have a successful bridge when they were complete. So they suggested the use of a new concrete mix, which is called self-consolidating concrete. It's more liquid, it has smaller aggregate sizes, and you don't need to vibrate it. So since this time, they have done a test mix, they've done a full-scale mock-up, and they have now poured the first 2 elements using the self-consolidated concrete, and we know that it can be successful. The contractor has determined that this is a design flaw, that they should have been, the designer should have taken into account the congestion of the rebar and doing the design, while the city's perspective is that this congestion was always known. They've known about it since they were with us during the 35% design phase, and that it's their means and methods to determine how they're going to achieve the consolidation within the concrete. So the dispute about the cause is still there. So as far as concrete placement goes, just to give you a little bit more detail, I won't go too long because it's a late meeting now, but one of the interesting features about this bridge is the elements are so large that they have to find a way to keep the concrete cool, because if it gets too hot in the middle, or if there's too much of a temperature differential between the core of the concrete and the outside surface, you can get concrete cracking, which obviously isn't good for concrete. So the contractor has tried 3 different methods to keep the concrete cool. They've put cooling tubes in where they run chilled water through the structure. They've put ice into the concrete mix, and now they're using what you can see on the left photo there is liquid nitrogen. So they've constructed a plant on site, and they inject liquid nitrogen into each concrete truck when it comes to the site, cools the concrete to 60 degrees, and that's been very effective in keeping the concrete cool and meeting all the temperature requirements. So the next picture you see is where the concrete trucks get discharged into the pump, and the photo on the right is where the pump ultimately dispenses the concrete into the forms, which are about 50 feet in the air. So what you see here is after we removed the forms of this knuckle structure, there are 2 photos of it, and I wanted to highlight on the left side, you see what are steel squares or steel plates. These are anchors for the post-tensioning system, which is part of the design to allow the structure to have less steel and to have longer spans. They put post-tensioning in, which means they put concrete cables through, or steel cables through, and they tension them or they pull them really tight, and it puts an upward lift or upward load on the structure, and that allows it to offset some of the loading from vehicles and other things on the top, so you get a better design performance out of it. So on March 25th, last month, and then again on April 13th, the first 2 elements were poured. Bent 11 was the first one, and then Bent 12 over the 101 freeway was just poured a couple of weeks ago.
I believe some of our community members were also at the grand opening of the LA
update is based on the budget and expenditures to date. The overall project budget, including all the adjustments that have made by council, is currently $477 million, of which $428 million is federal and state grants, so about 90% of our overall project funding is from federal and state grants, and about $49 million or 10% of the overall project budget is city or local funding. So we've been able to achieve a lot of overall value from the federal and state grants for this project. I'd also like to point out that this excludes about $69 million that our division also manages in both the park project and the active transportation projects, which are federally funded to do improvements of the sidewalks and bicycle access north and south of the bridge. So to date, we've expended about $278 million for the project, and of the remaining $199 million that we have to expend, about 17 of that is contingency. For the change order status to date, we have about $3.5 million in change orders, which is about 1.33%. With the approval of the board report this morning for the credit change order, it puts us almost back to zero net overall. But I want to point out that we have pending change orders for the viaduct package in the range of at least $4 million, and that the contractor has submitted claims for over $35 million for the viaduct package. So we're working with the contractor to try and negotiate these claims and change orders equitably, preferably or hopefully within the contingency that we have available. There is also a $6 million.
And Julie, your reports are quarterly, right?
Correct.
That's going to continue through the entire quarter.
Then we would have housing and services. Yes, I would expect so.
Not necessarily
go through the. It's been ongoing for a while now, but we have meetings scheduled with the city engineer and with the CEO of Skanska, the prime contractor, on an ongoing basis to try and work through these issues and achieve an equitable resolution. In addition to the $35 million for claims of the viaduct package, the contractors also submitted about $6 million claim for the foundations package, and the city has denied that certified claim, and the contractor has appealed that to the Board of Public Works, so that I have an upcoming slide of things that will be presented before the board in the near future, and this item will be presented to the board if there's no resolution before it gets to the board. So the next slide is on the project schedule.
Is there a particular role that faith
Based on the most recent schedule update submitted by the contractor, the project is 480 days behind schedule with a projected completion date of February 24th of 2022. And the contractor has attributed the increase in delay from the last report that we provided to you due to the self-consolidating concrete implementation. To use this kind of concrete, they had to break up the pours into various phases and add a lot of additional reinforcement to the forms and the false work to be able to handle the different kind of concrete. Based on the time impact analysis submitted to date by the contractor, the city has determined that a little over 100 days of the overall 480-day time extension is attributed to city change orders that we have issued. So those will be excusable delays when we finalize those change orders. But the remaining 300 plus days are still under dispute as to who is responsible for those. And I wanted to point out that the liquidated damages penalties associated with this contract for any non-excusable days is $25,000 a day that could be assessed to the contractor for these late delivery.
Taking a break.
So we continue to meet with the contractor frequently to try and find opportunities to recover some of these delays, but as of this point, it continues to get worse and worse rather than improving, unfortunately.
Volunteers that
The next slide is an update on the project labor agreement compliance. Fortunately, the contractor has been successful in achieving the PLA goals for apprentices. They've had 19% to date, which is in excess of what they need for the different trades that they have been employing on the project. And the disadvantaged participation goal for their hiring is 5%, and they've been able to achieve 12% to date.
Just wanted to add that the
next one is
$80,000
upcoming Board of Works actions.
that
As I
Beatrice
mentioned,
had voted
there will
for,
be
the
appeal of the city's
APAT has
determination
not
on the
received that
package
yet.
4 claim. In addition to
Our
that,
housing
all of our
procurement contracts team
I
is
should say
still
our design
drawing up that
contract
agreement,
is
and so,
expiring at the end of this year, and we intend to
that's when
request
we'll
board
be able
approval
to sort of see
to amend
the
that contract to
ongoing
allow
services
a 3-year extension
was
along with
in the
additional
presentation,
ceiling to allow us to pay them
we're
for that
meeting with
extended
the
duration. We also have consultant services under the federal on-call contracts that we also have expiring, unfortunately, this year. And Caltrans does not allow us to extend those contracts or add additional services to those, so Bureau of Engineering is putting a new federal list in place, and we will be coming to the board requesting approval for task order solicitations to allow us to continue the services that we have from consultants that are delivering services for the project.
Not really.
Another item was the change order for task order B, that was already today. For task order 5, any of these change orders that we resolve with the contractor that are over $150,000, we'll be bringing those forward to the board to request approval for those. And also, due to the time extension that we're experiencing, we expect to be bringing construction and maintenance agreements, amendments. These are agreements we have with the railroads to operate within their right-of-way for the project, and several of those have expiration dates that are expected to be surpassed. So we'll be bringing those back to you also in the near future. One last thing, the field trip group that came in reminded me that we do also do outreach. We do tours for students. In fact, a week ago we provided a tour to 40 high school students that are part of an engineering academy, and they had a bridge design component of their classwork, and so we got to put their hard hats and vests on and take them up and tour the project sites. They were all very thankful for that, so it's nice to be able to let them get exposed to, even though it's a challenging project, it's really an amazing project. And so even though it's frustrating a lot, I know it's really something special that I want to be able to let other people be a part of. And
It's a very exciting project. And, you know, it's a huge project, and they're never easy. And when you have, Julie, something as iconic as this, you know, these are difficult. But we
this is Commissioner Irene Tawar.
want to thank
We
you
have
and
a
your
trust
team
fund.
for
Is that what I
the
understand?
hard work and the late nights
Do we have a trust
and
fund?
the weekends and the early
Could you at the
mornings
next
and
meeting
all
tell
of
us a little
the,
bit more how that works?
you know, I hate to
It
say
doesn't work.
frustration, but
Well,
all
how
of
do
the,
we-
the
Wait,
work
the
that
question is,
comes
how do we
with,
yeah, I just want us to
succeeding
be
and
knowledgeable
delivering
about how this
such a
trust
major
fund works.
asset for the
Okay,
region.
so that we know how how it's created, how does the funding come to it, what
I
are
just
the
want to
things we
echo
can
the
do
same
with it
sentiments
or
as
not do
President
with it,
James.
okay?
This is temporary.
And the role
I
of
mean,
the city
it's-
council in
I'm sure
relationship
there's a
to this
whole lot of frustration going behind it, but it's temporary. And, you know, if we just keep the focus on the end goal, which is building the bridge for the city, and like President James says, an iconic bridge, it couldn't go smooth. So you know, I expected some of this. So I'm sure there's more to it, and, you know, eventually, you know, through briefings and so forth, we can go through that. But I just want to say that congratulations, you're doing a great job being the project manager of this huge project, and this is temporary. You'll get through this. We'll all get through it, including the contractors and so forth. And so just know that this is just a temporary time, and hopefully the next time you come and you update us, it'll be it'll be different. It will be different, because this will pass. I just wanted to say that. So thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for your report. It was really informative, and thank you for keeping us really up to date, transparently. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia. Commissioner Davis.
Since council's on recess, we anticipate that it'll probably be next week.
Complex
So-
and challenging project, quite actually. And I'm sure you are thankful
Well,
to
it's not,
Jerry for appointing you
no,
to
they
this,
wouldn't, right? They would
great
just put it in
project.
in
It's,
the
one
HRC
which
trust fund,
I think
because
is probably the largest
what we're
project
doing
at
here
this
is we're
time
really
in the
trying
United
to
States in
follow
terms of
Robert's
bridges.
rules
Aren't we
and
building the
trying to be
largest
very
one,
transparent,
with federal
not only
funds
with
to date,
TAC,
I
but
think,
with
or
you.
is it
I
so
can't
that
say
you
for
know
sure,
exactly
but it's
what-
definitely one of the
what
largest.
funds.
Definitely
So
one of
I
them.
welcome
Yeah, we're
what
getting a lot
Commissioner
of federal dollars, which is a good thing.
Irene Tawar just asked.
Some of the
So we will
strengths
do
of the
a
project,
clarification and give you also
project labor
where the
agreements.
budget
You
sits
said
now,
we've
and
done
give you a
successfully
printout of
to
where the
date
budget
on
is.
the
So this is
project
money
labor
that's
agreement.
earmarked for them. It's
We're
put
able
into
to
our
get
trust
young
fund because
people
don't have
and
one.
people.
They don't, right.
Who are not young.
Right.
This is us giving them
We're
the
able
rest
to
of
get
their money.
people from
So this-
throughout
well, this
various
is the first
areas of the
tranche
city involved on the project, correct?
Correct.
If you recall, I just want to do
Been able
historically,
to
if you've been on this
have
board
some
longer than
diversity
5 years,
in those
you would know
selections
that
of
the HRC at one point had over $80,000 in its trust fund that was exclusively for decisions made by the HRC board to see where it would spend it. So it would have been on an event, it would have been on helping put
disadvantaged
the
business enterprise
iftar
goal on this
on,
project
it would
is
have been
one of the
on
largest. They've
community
indicated
engagement
has been on any
opportunities
federal
in the
project. We have
community. It would have been on things that this
23.95%.
board will vote on. So
minority business involved.
part of maybe that
Correct.
presentation should be
And then also
how
women
we get
involvement,
funds
women business
to be
involvement,
put in
which is
there and who
oftentimes
puts them
difficult
there and how
achieve
the
in
city
construction
is able
projects
to
across the board
manage that
oftentimes.
so that
But I think
none
on
of
this
us are
project
faced
we've
with
done
ethical
reasonably well,
questions
haven't
about
we?
Yes,
that.
in fact, the steel subcontractor is a women-owned
When you said
business,
budget,
and it's a $20-plus
has
million
TAC provided a budget of how they will spend?
subcontract under this contract.
So I will not answer. I'll let
Impressive that
Chairman
we've been able to
Carina's
implement
And that's the
so
reason
much
why I had
DBE
created a budget
participation on
committee
the
to
subcontractors
look
on
into
this
all those things and also
said
to
we need to
report
also
and to see
update
where
our
the
design.
expenditures are
Currently,
looking
we're
for
working
and
on
what
that
events we
action
need to.
in
That
terms of the
we just
overall
formulated
budget. And you said we
a
needed to update
committee
our
for
design.
budget.
What we need to do is
I have
extend
a
their
question,
contract, so they
Commissioner
not only
Becerra
perform
Ramirez.
design for the project,
So,
but they support
last
design,
month
or they
we
support
discussed
construction
the
by reviewing
$100,000
submittals
that
and
City
updating the
Council had
design as
approved.
needed. So their services
And we,
expire at the end of this
we
year.
voted
So we need to
unanimously
extend
to
that. The design is
approve
complete, but they
moving
still
that
have services to
funds into
to
our
support
trust
the
fund.
design for the
And
remainder
so
of
now
construction.
today, what we're
From
talking
your
about is the
observation
first
for this
20,000
particular
that
quarter,
is being
what
moved into
have
the trust
you
fund, or
been
is
able
the
to
100,000
embrace
already
as
in our
being
trust fund?
Okay,
an
so again,
accomplishment that
just
we've
for
been able to
clarification,
maintain in this project
the allocation for the 2018-2019
For this particular quarter, I think
budget,
getting through the
the
issues
mayor
of the
allocated
concrete
in a
consolidation,
special
at the time, we didn't know
line
if it was going to
item,
be even achievable to use
$100,000
this
for
mix.
transgender, what they call
So
transgender advocacy
in
So
work.
this is
a
from
very
the mayor's
short period of time,
budget.
several months, they
The
built
mayor
a full-scale,
with City
like
Council 13.
20-foot
So
by
together they
30-foot
allocated
up-in-the-air
100,000. It was
model
decided that
and put
80
all
of
the
that
rebar
would go
inside it,
to
and we're able to
Nistro,
get a
and the
concrete mix
remaining
design that
20
worked
will go to the
and be able to
programmatic
pour it
needs of the town.
and implement it
So
on the
the
job.
80 that's
So
going to
it could have been a much
Midnight
worse
Stroll,
impact.
has
if
that
we
already
hadn't
been
worked together
transferred
to
to
get
our
It's already in the
and
trust
get
fund.
It's
Caltrans
already
on
in the
board
trust
and
fund,
get them
but
to approve it.
you're
So
not,
they
you're
completed that pour
postponing
over the
the
101
Midnight
freeway.
Stroll
It's
till
always
June.
a risky
And
endeavor. We had to
so
close the
when you
freeway
do
for
that,
6
will that
hours at night
80,000 be
to
available to
achieve the
you?
pour.
Yeah,
and they
so
were able to
so in the
open
last
freeway
meeting,
back up
so
without
we
any
don't, the
new
HRC,
issues.
the
So
board does
that
not have
was
to
a big
vote in order to
accomplishment to
receive
get through
funds.
Great,
So
great.
those
So I'm
funds
glad
were
to
already
see that
transferred,
and
from my
trying
understanding,
Yes,
into
you
really
need to
HRC
vote on
capture
trust
what
that.
our
fund.
strengths have
Last
been
meeting,
for this
the
quarter.
HRC board approved
Also,
the transfer of
our
the
goal, I
80,000
know we
to
have
the
over
Midnight
quarterly
Stroll
reports.
funding. All that's being
Talked about
waited
our
on is
goal,
now
and
the
of course, we
accounting
now have a
the
goal of
accounting
20.
section.
But the
22,
80,000
is that
is
correct?
already
The
available
current
to you
scheduled
when
date
you're
was
ready
early
to continue
2022.
the Midnight Stroll.
And
Wonderful,
originally it was
wonderful.
supposed to
And
be
so
Not yet,
21.
until
Oh,
we
not yet.
execute
Until
the
the-
contract.
Completion
Oh,
date is
until the
November of
Which is just, it's
2020.
being written up with
It's
accounting.
finalized.
Now we
Okay,
say
okay.
that
And so now,
2022 is when we know that we will be.
right, right.
Or
And
when
so
we
now the
have
20,000 that
agreed
we're
that we
discussing
will be complete
is
on this
your new
project.
plan
Is that
that you're
I
putting
would say that
together
it's the
as to how you
contractor's
propose to use
determination
the
of when they
additional
expect to complete it. The city hasn't
Okay.
agreed to
Thank you
that
for the
date as of yet. We're still reviewing their schedule update. It just came in last week. But we
Well, in
will
looking at our
evaluate it.
strengths that we've just
All in favor?
discussed for this particular
Aye.
quarter,
All opposed?
are you encouraged that we're making reasonable progress towards our overall goal from this
I think
quarter?
what
That's
I'm
going to change every
not
quarter, I
understanding
know.
is if,
So I'm just going to take
we
it
should
at
be waiting for the
face
budget.
value of where you see us for this particular quarter.
You said that your
I
budget
see this
committee's
quarter
in
as
process.
definitely an improvement in teamwork, and the
Funding
contractor has
expenditure
brought
of
more
that
crews on
20,000
board. And
planning,
not only were they able to pour
where
these
we
two
should
self-consolidating concrete
allocate
elements
for
over
those
yesterday and today, they
is
actually
we
poured
have
the
to
first
look
two
into
elements
that, and then
across
proposal would
from the
come
north side to the
forward.
south side of the bridge.
then,
So as long as they can keep that
But
momentum
if
and
we
that
approve today, you'll have the-
productivity going, I think that
Yeah.
we shouldn't see any more slippage. At least I
So Commissioner Rothman,
quarter's
so
report,
am I
and,
correct with
I
your
hope that we're
questioning
able to
is we
continue to
really don't know what the plan is, but yet
what
we're
we have been
approving
able to achieve in both
That's my
business
concern.
inclusion
Yeah.
and also success on the
Yes,
project.
yes, I agree.
As we move forward. Thank you.
Again, I want to make
Thank you,
absolutely
Commissioner
clear
Davis. I don't have any
that
further.
the TAC
Commissioner
has
Flores?
autonomy here, and I want
I'm
to
just gonna make
just
this quick. I
reiterate
don't
that
want
again and again
to be the one
for this
keeping
board.
you all from
They
lunch.
get to choose how that
But,
money
you know,
is
I've
spent,
only,
but they
I've
have to
been on
create
the
a
board for about a
process.
month
The
now,
only
but,
reason
I
that it
think,
comes through you because you're a
even in
fiscal
these 4
agent
weeks,
of
I,
PAC.
truly
So
understand
you
the
would look at
complexity
how they're
of this project and,
what their plans are and
really
what they're using and
feel so much
utilizing
better
the funds
that
for.
both
But certainly
you,
they have the
both
autonomy
strong
to
women in
figure out
engineering
their
are
own
leading this
sort of
project makes me
spending
feel a lot
and
better.
how they spend it and
You've
where and
made
what they
huge
spend it
strides,
on.
I think, in
So,
the different meetings that I've
I just
attended
want to make
from
that clear
with the
because
railroads
part
and
of
the
what your
contractor itself.
responsibility is as a
That
fiscal agent
yes,
is to
it's
say,
frustrating, but
look,
there is an
you're
intention
drawing
from,
down here and it
especially
has
from
to go through.
engineering and how you're
You
leading
have a
these
process
working
and you
groups
deal with that
to make
process.
progress,
Then it comes to
and
us
that we,
as a
deliver.
motion within our
And
board.
you
So
live
what
and
you're
breathe this
saying is we
project
don't
every
have
day,
the
and so
authority to
I
approve
just
or
want to,
disapprove of their
thank
plan.
you for
They have the
all this
autonomy to
progress
create
that
their own
you've
plan.
made, and know
We're
that
basically just
I
approving the
think you have
process
a lot of
transferring the money
support
and
here at the
allowing them
board,
to
and
utilize the
I've gone there in
We had a
person
discussion
and
of this.
taken the
did.
tour
We had a
myself, and would
discussion of this
definitely
last
recommend
month.
it to my other colleagues to personally
and
go and
basically
just
what
see
it
the
comes-
complexity and the
what it comes
magnitude of
down
this
to
project. It really,
But I
helps
have a
you have a
generic
better
concern,
understanding of all
because
these, complicated
if
packages
we're
and these
being told
large
that we don't
dollar
have any
figures,
authority
and
in
how
terms
many
of
And I'd like
players
to
are
clarify
involved in
that
even just
with our
one piece
discussion
of
last
it.
month.
So,
because
thank you.
there and
We
no
sincerely
it has no
appreciate your
reference to
involvement
you.
and guidance.
It could
and
be
we're
that
happy
there
to
are
have you
some
on
things
board,
that if
and
we're
thank you for
not, if
touring,
we're
and,
responsible, we all
I know
should
Commissioner
not
Garcia has toured
only
also,
know,
so
but we should know
we're
the
happy to tour anyone,
procedure
anytime.
before we approve it. I think that's what you're
Thank you,
getting to.
Commissioner Coloza.
Before we
Dr.
vote
Campos, have we cleared
for
the
it,
desk?
right? Even though
Yes, you
it's,
have.
I might just mention, since
okay,
I'm,
but
since I'm going to
just
be
knowledge for us that
not
this
at
is how
the
they're
board
gonna
on
spend it.
Friday,
And then I would recommend that in that
and
report, we
all my
also
friends here
insert
and colleagues
what
know
is-
what an
once
avid
the money
sports
has
fan
been
I am.
approved, is there a reporting
That,
system as
and
to
I mention
how
this
it
because
was
it's
spent,
very unusual.
so that we have full
But
awareness of how
a
it
member of
was
our
spent,
Public Works
because
extended
X
family, a
group
former president of the Board
might
of
have
Public
given us
Works,
a nice budget,
Maureen Kendall,
but in the end, how did
has
they
a
implement it,
grandson
and was it consistent
who is
with
going
the
to be
purpose
drafted in the
of that
NFL
approval
draft
that
this
we gave?
weekend.
So I would
So if you're
submit
watching the
that we
NFL
need some
draft,
kind of
her
report
grandson's
coming
name
back
is
next
Stephen
month, if that's
Flintoff,
when
and
I
he
really feel
was
it
the
should be,
punter
because
for
it's legislation
UCLA.
that we're talking about,
And he is
that
projected
should
by
be also
ESPN
one
to
of the things
go
should
as
be
the third
described
punter
and
in the
reported
draft,
back
which
to
they
us.
think will probably
Then
be
she
on
said she
Saturday.
has a budget
Although I'm
committee,
not sure that
and
the
so
Utah
they
punter is going to
bring
go
it back
before
to
him,
us and tell us
which
what they
ESPN
spent it
thinks.
on.
So he might go as early as Friday, which is the second day of the draft. But for anybody that's had family or friends or you've played football, to have somebody make it all the way to the NFL draft and get drafted is a very, very, very small percentage.
Thank
So
you, Olivia.
congratulations to them, and I know they're very excited in their family. But I wanted to say something about it because she was a former president of the Board of Public Works.
Vote on
So there we
today
go.
is permission
Maybe
to
that
move
means
the
one day one of my
20,000
grandkids will be
into
drafted
the
in the
trust
NFL.
That's it.
So with that,
Now,
we are
the PAC
we are
No,
adjourned.
no,
Thank you,
it came in
everyone.
2 pieces. So it's an allocation of 100,000.
Our management meeting, are they
Last
ready
time
for
you
us? Are
voted
we going to
to
have our
move the
management
80,000
meeting?
to cover AP. The 20,000 we're asking you to move, authorize to move into the trust fund.
Yeah, we'll decide that
will
offline.
Develop a budget of how they want to spend the money as they go along. That budget of how they want to spend it has to come to you, and you have to approve it. So today, you're just moving the money into the trust fund.
Wait,
Okay.
but